I'm just going to sit here like I'm about to read you the top news of the day. I'm not. Sorry to run a little bit late this evening, folks. My name is Frank Johnson. I am the co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, co-host of The Range Report, and host of the ever-popular YouTube channel, The Range Report. Just wanted to stop in a little bit. Everybody seems to be running a little bit late. There's change to Wednesday, even though it's, weeks and weeks and weeks into the show, it seems to be taking a bit of a toll on everybody schedule-wise. Now that the summer months are running a little bit, more daylight on it, it seems that we're all forced to work a little bit later in the day, so we're not all here at the right time at the same time. So I'm here. I managed to get back to the house before anybody else did, so it's you and me, kid. That's right, just you and me. So if you're here in the audience, you want to stop, you want to say hello, please do so in the comment section down below. Let us know where you are, how you doing, how your day has been, and whether or not you've heard us mention anything about the Alpha Challenge, because the Alpha Challenge is coming. So, since I have nobody else here to discuss things with, and it's just going to be me by myself for the, foreseeable, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes that I might just decide to hear my own voice, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the Alpha Challenge and how we're going to operate this thing. Now, as you guys may know, for the last 3 or 4 years now, we've been trying to put together a shooting competition that is unlike anything else that is in the Second Amendment community. You've got different kind of competitions, tree gun, bullseye, IPSC, all of these different competitions. And we realize that all of these competitions are based on individual achievement. How good are you? How good is your gear? How fast you can run the course? But the one thing that I always found with all these competitions is there's not a lot of room for expansion when it comes to regular folk. You've got a lot of corporate shooters, so to speak, sponsored shooters. These people, that's what their job is. They get up, they live, they breathe, they eat, they sleep. Everything is going to the range every day, practice, practice, practice. They get sponsored guns, sponsored ammunition. They could shoot all the livelong day. And, when you got 8 hours a day to practice, you can be pretty damn good at just about anything that you do. Well, there's a lot of people out there that would love to be able to take these folks on, but they're regular people that don't have access to a range 24 hours a day. They don't have access to the finest firearms that money can buy. They don't have access to an endless supply of ammunition, and they don't have access to somebody signing a check for them. We're all working class people in this world. So we kind of looked and thought, well, how can we build something that we can make available to the average, everyday, John and Jane Doe, and come on in and try your hand at this competition. And I got kind of thinking that maybe an individual sport is not what we need if we want to bring people in, because we have an opportunity to bring people into our sport and into the Second Amendment community that don't normally play on this field. We wanted to be able to try and bring people into the community that, have outdoor experience, that have a love of being outside, the nature and stuff like that, but maybe don't have access to the best of equipment or, like I said, the time to do the shooting. So we came up with something called the Alpha Challenge. And for the last few years, we have been, every time we go to some of these events, from this state and that state, this state and that state, it's not just a matter of covering the event that we're going to. It's a matter of doing the research to try and find a facility that we could hold the Alpha Challenge at. Because it had to be very specific. It has to be just the right kind of topography, the right time of the year, the right kind of weather. We have to look at scheduling conflicts between all of the other sanctioned firearm events that are out there to try and make sure that we could fall within a schedule that would make ourselves available to the most amount of shooters. And a couple of weeks ago, while we were at the NRA, we happened across some people that are the operators of a place called Sanctum 1791. Sanctum 1791 is basically the Mar-a-Lago of gun clubs. We're talking about 100 plus acres of the most beautiful, pristine, landscaped conditions you could possibly find. Finest equipment, the most beautiful backdrops. Everything is being state of the art, and it's currently being built. And even though it's at about the 60th percentile of completion, they've already got nearly 1,000 members of this club. So you can tell that there's a clamoring for this kind of facility. Well, we met with those folks, and they were very intrigued by the idea. So we took the ride out about a week later, went to the facility, looked at it, and mapped out the event and made sure that it fit. And it's as if they built this club for our event. So we're in agreement with 1771 to have the Alpha Challenge at their facility, which is located near Surf City, North Carolina, around the Wilmington area. So it's 10 minutes from the coast, and it is a spectacular facility. And now that we know what we have, now we can say, okay, how do we tailor the competition to our landscape? How do we make the topography work for us? So we actually made the challenge a lot more difficult. Well, I shouldn't say more difficult, but there's more challenges. There's nothing in the challenge that the ordinary civilian cannot do. So you might not be the world's greatest athlete, but you might be a decent shooter. You can have a chance to win this whole thing. You might be the world's greatest athlete, but a horrible shot. You're going to have a chance to win this thing. And if you can't win the event in totality, it's not the end of the world, because each section of the event is going to be broken up into individual categories that the individual participants will be able to win their own segment independently of what the rest of the team does. So if you're the best team and you run the fastest 4 segments, you win the whole kit and caboodle. But you could be the worst team, but have one really good superior athlete that runs their course faster than everybody else, and you're still going to take home a good chunk of prize money. So tonight I'm going to let you guys in on a few of the challenges that we're going to be posting at this event, and we're not going to name some of the sponsors yet. Okay, we want to make sure that we are in solid contract with these fine folks before we start making announcements. So we don't want to oblige anybody. Like Paul Masson said, we shall sell no wine before it's time. So we're not going to let the cat completely out of the bag, but you might hear him meow here or there. In the interim, my good friend Michael Vasquez, Dragon of the Southern Tier, New York State's only truly independent journalist. He's joining us this evening. Vass, how are you, sir? Vass doesn't have his headphones on. It would really suck if my audio wasn't working. let me hit him with a message. See if we can. I don't know, Vass, can you hear me? Apparently he's not even looking at the screen. All right, well, while Vass is doing that, I'm going to break this down to you in a couple of different ways. The Alpha Challenge, the Ultimate Alpha Challenge, is going to have 2 components to it. One is going to be the Alpha Challenge itself, and the other is going to be a traditional 3-gun match. Now, a 3-gun match is usually a handgun, rifle, and a shotgun. Now, the thing about 3-gun matches is all of these competitors usually bring their own gear to these things. We're going to do things a little bit differently, not only for the 3-gun challenge, but for the entire Ultimate Alpha Challenge. We are going to be providing all of the firearms. Yep, so if you want to compete, you don't even have to own a gun. You can come there and use the guns that we're going to be providing for you. Now, how we planned on doing this was that we wanted to make the playing field as level as humanly possible. So we're eliminating all of the technology bias. Instead of having these hopped up 1911s, 2011s, competition pistols, and all the rest of that stuff for the handgun challenge, we're using a good old-fashioned double-action, single-action revolver. Caliber yet to be determined. For the rifle portion of this, we're going old school with a lever-action rifle. Again, caliber to be determined. No scopes, no sights, no fancy gadgets, nothing. A revolver and a lever-action rifle. The shotgun portion of the competition is going to be a 12-gauge shotgun, just like it is with regular 3-gun, except it's not going to be semi-automatic, and it's not going to be pump. It's going to be a break-action, single-shot, 12-gauge shotgun. So after every target that you shoot, you're going to have to break that shotgun open, reload it, and shoot again. And you're going to have to do this as many times as necessary to clear your portion of the field. The reason we're doing this is because, as a guy who sells guns every day, I see guns ranging anywhere from handguns for $150 up to $8,000. And I see competitors out there in the 3-gun world using firearms that are about that expensive. These are some of the most precision crafted, custom tailored racing machines that don't have an engine in it that you could possibly get. And they are tailored for the shooter who's using it. We're going to eliminate that by giving everybody the same exact firearms. So now Vass is saying that he's having a problem hearing me. Well, hearing anything.
I can hear kind of. I'm back now.
Now I hear you now.
Technical stuff.
Okay.
It started a little bit later. I showed up a little late, so I'm trying to do some background stuff to catch up.
It's all right. Well, you hear me though, right?
Now I do. Yes.
Now you do. Okay. Well, I was just hoping everybody could. All right. So while Vass is still
my system.
All right, so while Vass is figuring that out, I'm going to continue to discuss the 3-gun real quick. So the reason we're doing that is we're eliminating the professional advantages. We're eliminating the financial advantages, and we're giving everybody the exact same firearms to use. Now, we're going to have multiple firearms of each kind. So when you get to the revolver station, there will be several revolvers, but they're going to be identical. These guns are going to be certified identical from the manufacturer. They're going to be test fired, test sighted, and they are going to be guaranteed to be exactly the same. So it doesn't matter which handgun you decide to choose, it's going to be the same exact performance that you would expect out of any of the other ones. The same is going to apply for our lever action rifles. They're going to be identical. The levers are going to weigh the same. The triggers are going to weigh the same. They're going to have the same exact action, same caliber, same sighting, everything. The same will apply for shotguns. What we are going to do is put the shooter to the test, not the firearm. The firearms are all going to be perfect. We want to see how good the shooter is. So when you have professional shooters who are going to come into this thing without their gear, they're going to use the same exact gear that, a plumber from Wisconsin is going to use, that he decides that they want to shoot. We want to know how many of those belt buckles in your trophy case, how many of those trophies, those ribbons, those awards, how many of that were won based on your skill, and how much of them were won based on your skill plus the advantage you had of amazing gear. So by eliminating all of that and making everybody play on the exact same surface, the exact same guns, the exact same targets, everything being exactly the same, we're going to see who can crack under pressure and who's going to prevail. Because if you've ever tried to load a revolver without the benefit of a speed loader while you're against a shot clock, I can tell you it's nerve-wracking. If you've ever tried to load a lever-action rifle through a side gate, that's pretty nerve-wracking too. The shotgun is probably going to be the easiest thing because it's only one shot and you're done. Then you got to reload. But that is going to be the 3-gun competition. Now, the 3-gun competition is going to be situated so it falls under the same rules as 3-gun nation. So as long as we have targets at a certain distance, numerical amount of targets, how much movement is required, we want to be able to have 3-gun nation apply their point challenges so that even if you're not a 3-gun competitor, but you just want to, compete for the prize money, that's your option. But if you're a professional shooter and you need the points for your yearly average, well, you're going to play for the prize money and your points. We want to make sure that this is going to be sanctioned properly, because the Alpha Challenge, that is not going to be sanctioned at all. That's going to be so much out of the box that we're going to have to create our own sanctioning body just for this competition. Because this is how it's going to be. And I'm going to let Vash jump in a little bit right now and see, you got your technical difficulties squared away, brother?
I'm all good. I'm listening to you.
All right, good. All right, so in the footnote down below, I said we were going to talk about this week. From what I saw this week in the news, which wasn't all that much, I've been kind of preoccupied. The Saudis are giving us a plane.
Yeah.
From what I understand, a brand new 747, because for some reason, Boeing is 2 or 3 years behind the curve in delivering the plane that was ordered.
Right.
Right now, we got people that are up in arms saying, the president can't take a gift like that. The president can't take a gift. Well, from my reading of this is not a gift to the president. This is a gift to the Department of Defense, because the Department of Defense is who runs Air Force One under the banner of the United States Air Force, and this is not a gifted plane, this is a loaner plane. So we're there now, we're going to try and start, we have to impeach Trump, he's taking a $400 million gift from somebody. That's a load of bullshit. Secondly, I think it's stupid if we do take the plane. I think it's a tremendous vulnerability for us to take a plane from a foreign entity and use it to fly around the leader of the free world and his cabinet members, along with a nuclear football and any other information that goes along with them. So I think it would be stupid for us to do that, because it's just a ripe opportunity for espionage, to take place, or worse.
Well, really, this is a non-story. It's not a story. It's just not. And this is a hope and a prayer for Democrats to try and get a couple of people who haven't joined onto their orange man bad messaging to give them an on-ramp on there. That's all this is. No, it's not a gift directly to President Trump. It isn't Donald Trump's plane, which if it were a gift to Donald Trump, there'd be a conversation. It's not. It's to the United States government, which the government can decline, and we should. Because, yes, there is the security concerns. You don't know what kind of tracking devices, what kind of listening devices, what kind of encryption breaking devices may be on that vehicle, and any other integral flaws that may have been built into it, which could cause the plane to crash suddenly for all kinds of reasons. So, no. But that's as simple as Congress doing its job, which is very simple. Say no. Congress can say no. This isn't just president says so and so there it is. Congress can say no. Don't accept this gift. It's the United States government does not accept this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Goodbye. That's all. And really, the Saudis don't care. The gift from Qatar isn't about whether or not Trump accepts it. He doesn't need it. It's not something that he doesn't have already. It is the impression. It is the example of their willingness to work with Donald Trump and the United States. And that willingness, that expression has now been global. That was the point, that Qatar is working with the Trump administration and the United States to advance a bunch of our issues. And that's what this was about. And you can't impeach Donald Trump for the United States receiving a gift. It's stupid. Again, like all of the other issues, Donald Trump hasn't broken the law. Democrats don't care. Orange man bad, which means impeachment. This is why the first two impeachments failed. Why did they fail? Not just because Republicans voted against it, because Democrats had the majority, at least for one of the votes. The bigger thing is they don't have any validation behind their claim. They just don't like his politics. And that's why it's a non-story. Anyone who's
it's not even his politics. They just don't like him. He could come out and agree with every single thing that they want to do, and they'll turn into the most conservative group of people that you'd ever see in your life. They just hate the man. They hate the man. He put Hillary out to pasture. He calls them funny names. He makes them look like idiots. He's burning down the system. They hate the man. It's got nothing to do with his politics. I mean, when you've got, he's come out and...
He isn't making them look bad. He's highlighting that they look bad. They already do. And he's just highlighting it, and he's riding it for as much fun and joy as he can. And that's the difference and they don't know how to, they're not snappy. They don't know how to have an actual honest human level conversation. They're used to having their political discussions, which Democrats dominate because they dominate news media. So they're ready for news media sound bites. They're not ready to have a real conversation. And that's why they do so badly with Donald Trump.
No, they just, like I said, they hate him. Like I said, it's not the politics, it's not the policies. A lot of the policies that he's embraced over the years are populist policies. They're kind of the things that most people can agree on, including a lot of Democrat voters. It's just they hate him. He is the symbol for everything they can't control. And that's why they hate the guy. So no matter what it is that he does, says, or anything else, they can hate him for everything. I mean, you hear he came out with the drug price proposal to try and say, we give favored member status to all these other countries. Why don't we have our own favored member status and be treated exactly the same way that foreign nations are when it comes to drug prices? Why are we absorbing 90% of the burden of the cost for drugs that is peddled around the world when the rest of the world is paying it at bargain basement prices? So...
Yeah, and to an extent, in a way, you heard the same thing coming from the Biden-Harris administration. Almost the same thing. There are some differences in there. But one of the things to keep in mind, and this is why we haven't seen this, it's not the first time anyone has suggested this before. We've heard this under Bush. We've heard this under Clinton. We've heard this under Obama. Why doesn't it happen? America is actually paying for all the other countries. That's why. America's paying. We're paying for all the brand new drugs that, whether you've heard of it or not, we're paying for the drugs that those 15 people in the world need to stay alive. We paid for it, the United States. And we also paid for the next drug, the next Ozempic or whatever you want to call it. We're paying for that drug as well, on the back of this drug that we need. That's why we pay more. Most people just think, oh, well, they're just filthy rich. Most of the numbers they quote in terms of, well, this pharmaceutical company is filthy rich. Yeah, that's the gross revenue or the gross profit. That's before they put the money back into research and development, before they reinvest it. And they do. They only make, and they're only making very often, depends on the company and the exact set of drugs, but very often they're making somewhere around 15 cents, sometimes 50 cents on any one drug. Yeah, they could be making, 1,000%, except it's not one drug. It's the one drug after 10 years of research, along with 15 alternatives that they had to research for 5 years to get to that point. That's the total cost. You're talking about a net realized cost of about 15 cents.
Well, listen, there's a lot more in pharmaceutical drugs than 15 cents. There's a lot more than 50 cents. Otherwise, these drug manufacturers would not be buying up the airwaves to make 70% of American commercials in the United States no longer being about food, entertainment, or products, but about drugs. Every other goddamn commercial is about a friggin' drug. Ask your doctor about this one. Ask your doctor about that one. Ask him about this one. You know what I want to ask these companies? Why are you producing all these drugs that the side effects are worse than the problem that you're trying to treat?
No, that's not my problem. My problem is, why are people buying it?
Well,
see, they're only taking advantage of the fact that people
listen. Look, they take advantage of the fact that they create one drug to solve a problem, but it doesn't solve the problem. It hides the problem, and then the drug that's used to hide the problem creates a side effect. And just so happens they sell a drug that prevents that side effect, but that one creates one that has a side effect. And before you know it, you had an ingrown toenail and you're taking 17 friggin' pills for it.
Yeah, and that's your own fault.
Instead of taking a goddamn nail clipper and getting rid of the thing, you're taking all these pills because they don't peddle the cures.
Yeah,
they peddle.
I don't blame them.
And they, right? And no, you see, I do blame them. I blame everybody for that.
What?
I blame the fact. I blame. Listen, I blame the FDA for allowing drug companies to lie to people like this. You're supposed to have something that you're supposed to police this industry. Why are you giving FDA drug approval to 100,000 kind of different drugs, and then you tell everybody it's fine, it's got 75 side effects, and then 10 years later, you pull the goddamn FDA approval, and then a year after that, I'm watching friggin' lawyer videos about, Joe, did you or somebody in your family take this drug? Well, you can have a class action lawsuit. How about let's start.
And wait a minute, Frank. That's not correct. As much as I don't mind.
How is it not correct?
Let me explain. Because as much as I don't like pharmaceutical companies in some of their tactics, that's the story that gets misrepresented by the mainstream news media very often. The FDA isn't there to decide, hey, this drug works really, really well. They don't care. That's not their job. That's not what they're supposed to do. Oh, you should use this drug. No, they don't care. That's not their job.
Their job is to research and approve the drugs to a minimum standard of safety.
The only job of the FDA is to say this drug won't kill you. That's it. That's their job.
Well, then if that's right, all right. If that's the only job of the FDA, then the FDA's got to fucking go.
Why? They do their job. They've done it well. Whether or not, and that's not the issue. And that's really not the issue. Everyone likes to point there. That when we understand the FDA, its only job is this poisonous. It is not poisonous. Okay, forget them. Whether we should keep them or not, that's a separate issue.
Here's the thing, though. They fail at that job. How many drugs a year do you see get recalled 10 years after they got FDA approval because a side effect is killing people? That it didn't show up until 10 years later.
No, the side effect is killing people at a higher rate than was initially expected, and that's unforeseen. You can't predict that completely in any drug, on anything. Every drug known to man has a side effect. If it's made by man, it has a side effect. If you as people take more and more combinations of drugs and live worse and worse lifestyles, many of these drugs have greater impacts on their livelihood and they die. And then you get lawyers who will sue for anything because they're lawyers and they're looking.
Well, listen. Well, here's
ultimately is the individual. Why are you using this when you don't need to?
Why are you using it? Because your doctor prescribes it.
Screw that.
You get the healthcare company pays for it. You pay the copay for it, and all the rest of that. There's maybe 3 legitimate medications in the world.
There's lots of legitimate medications. Do you need them? The question isn't is it legitimate?
Right. So why do we have an industry that's capitalizing on people being unhealthy instead of promoting industries that kind of help people be healthy?
Because their profit model works. That's why. I don't have a problem. They don't. The problem isn't that they're making this drug. The problem is people are living poorly. And that's part of the whole MAHA movement. It's part of the whole RFK thing. And a lot of people aren't thinking about it in that way. We've been thinking about it from the reverse end, the wrong way. If you live healthier, you don't need this stuff. You know how many medications? I'm 57 years old. I eat nothing but red meat. I eat bread and potatoes with salt, and I fry half the things that I eat. I don't eat any vegetables for the last 40 years of my life. Literally, you know this for a fact. I'm not making any of this up. I don't exercise since I got out almost immediately after leaving the Marine Corps. I stopped exercising because I can't stand it. 57 years old. You know how many medications I take?
1.
0.
You take nicotine.
That's not a medication. That's a drug, and that's supposed to.
No, but it's well. What's the difference between a drug and a medication?
One is supposed to have a benefit. Nicotine doesn't have a benefit.
Nicotine does have a benefit. Nicotine does have a benefit. Nicotine has been shown to help improve people with Alzheimer's, except they won't give it to them.
I don't have Alzheimer's, so it doesn't apply. But here's the thing.
That's because of the nicotine.
Maybe, but here's the point.
That's why we don't forget nothing, you and me.
Well, maybe, but here's my point, is that people are not recognizing, and this is the other side of the RFK MAHA movement, the other side of being healthy. If you're healthier, you need less. We have been so unhealthy in this nation, and we have been so blindly obedient to our doctors and the medical industry and people like Dr. Fauci that we stopped asking questions, we stopped looking at alternatives, and we stopped relying on ourselves. The first step is live a better life. That stuff.
All right. Well, this is all part of the larger picture that I'm talking about. We've got something like the FDA. What does FDA stand for?
Federal Drug Administration.
Food and Drug. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The FDA is the group that's in charge that gives approval to what food is safe to consume and what drugs are safe to consume. All of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
It has. If you go back to the days before the FDA existed, look at pictures of Coney Island Beach from the 1930s. You won't find a single fat bastard there. Matter of fact, the fat. If you went to a carnival in the 1930s, the fat man was somebody who weighed 250 pounds.
That has nothing to do with the FDA.
Listen, Mike. Would you shush and let me get a fucking point out here?
Go ahead. I'm listening to you.
Since the FDA, since we put government in charge of regulating what goes into food and telling us what was safe and what wasn't, and had the government tell us what drugs were safe and what weren't, Americans have gotten sicker and fatter and are having worse lives. We might be living longer, but at a poorer quality of health than we were 50 years ago. I would rather live to 65 and die healthy than live to 85 and being in a fucking bed with a colostomy bag and 16 tubes sticking out of me.
Yeah,
When we had when the federal government took control, when the people let the federal government tell us what was good, what was bad, what would hurt us, what was approved and what wasn't, we gave away the keys to the kingdom. We gave them the keys to the kingdom. So now as long as everybody says, oh, let's look, it's FDA approved, it must be good for me. It's FDA approved, this must be healthy. It's FDA approved. Well, the government knows best. And yet they recall every goddamn drug that they approved 10 years later because it's got side effects that are killing kids or killing other people. They recall stuff in the food because the dye is causing cancer, that this caused cholesterol problems, that caused this. How many times would they tell us butter was no good, eat margarine? Margarine is one molecular label away from plastic. So now don't eat margarine, now you got to eat something else. Well, don't have canola oil, have this oil. Don't have this salt, have this salt. Don't eat this, don't eat that. They have sent Americans mixed signals for years and been paying off politicians to keep them in power and keep them to continue their bullshit. So Americans can't even get a goddamn dozen eggs without them being homogenized, pasteurized, and sodomized. We can't do a goddamn thing in this country anymore, food-wise. You can't go to an Amish farm and buy raw milk because the FDA says you're not allowed to. You go to jail for that shit. So what I'm telling you is that the government has caused the problem. And the people have gone along with it willy-nilly, listening to government instead of listening to the people who should know better themselves. And when we talk about the doctors, why do doctors practice medicine? Because they can't get it right. That's why they practice, because not a single one of them knows a goddamn thing on what the hell they're doing anymore. Because they get a drug representative comes into their office and says, if you prescribe this drug to a certain number of your patients, you're going to get a cash bonus. Look at what they did during COVID. Put somebody on a ventilator, we're going to give you $15,000. The ventilator's going to friggin' kill them, but don't worry, you're going to get $15,000. Oh, the guy came in on a motorcycle accident, his head was left in the trunk of the car that he ran into. He must have died of COVID. Oh, here's somebody came in with 16 gunshots in the back of the head, must have died of COVID. As long as you were able to list it as COVID, you got paid. It's about money for these people. Money, power, and control, and the American people are too goddamn naive to understand it. This is what I'm telling you. It's all linked together, and we gave away the key to the kingdom. And the government is purposefully doing what they can do through our representatives to keep us sick, to not let us be healthy, to prevent us from getting the stuff that we want to get. Why during COVID did they make you couldn't plant your own vegetables? You couldn't grow your own food. You couldn't do anything on your own. No, you had to go and you had to buy the shit they told you to buy because freedom is a threat to them. Freedom is a threat. And as long as there's an agency that's regulating what goes into it, you won't have your freedom. FDA's got to go the same way that education's got to go, the same way ATF's got to go. They all got to go. So when I talk about burning the system down, I'm not talking about burning the government down. I'm talking about putting a fire under the light of liberty and letting people live their lives the way they're supposed to, and let us have our lives, let us make our decisions. Not your bullshit, oh, yellow dye is good for you on Tuesday, but it kills you on Thursday. Oh, if you stand walking through the restaurant, you're going to get COVID, but if you sit in the chair, you're fine. Well, what happens when the guy rolls through with the wheelchair? It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit, and this is what I'm trying to say. The pharmaceutical industry is corrupt to the core, exactly the way federal government is, because they work hand in hand with each other, because they take the money and freedom from us. You and I aren't invited to their game. You can defend them as much as you want, but they look at you as just another pincushion. Same way they look at me. You just happen to not have to take any of their shit yet. There, I'm done.
Okay.
I hope.
Can I answer all that? Because I know that's a very emotional outburst, and I know a lot of people love it because it's very popular. It's actually what people say all the time about these issues.
Except not as eloquently as I do.
Not as eloquently, but these are the sentiments. When you're looking at it from an emotional point of view, that is the conclusions you come to. And it's not an emotional point of view. It's from the point of view of... No, Frank, let me speak this time. Because you cut me off before, I'm not going to cut you off. let me answer this because there's a lot to it. Not as much as what you had to go through, but let me explain. Because you're not entirely wrong, but the core of it is the pharmaceutical companies are not the problem. They never were. They're doing exactly what they have told us they were going to do, exactly what their job description is, exactly what brings them profit every year. And they have the 10Ks and the investor meetings, and they publish this information on a regular basis. You know about the fact that your doctor is getting paid to give you one of the drugs that they promote. You know this already. It's not a secret. There's nothing hidden about this. It's upfront. So the problem isn't that they're making these drugs and they have side effects. We already know that. Matter of fact, they have to publish those side effects on the drugs. How many people ask about that? No one. But they have to, whether it's in a commercial or whether you're in your doctor's office. You can ask the question, they will tell you the answer, and they will go over it with you. By law, they must. The problem isn't the pharmaceutical companies. It's not that part of the law. The problem is people, and you mentioned it yourself, people changed their habits. People changed the way they look at these things. We stopped asking questions, not just about medicines and foods, but everything that regards the government or anyone we're told is an authority figure. And when we stopped asking the questions, when we stopped challenging them, when we started saying everything they said as verbatim and just obeyed and just blind allegiance, blind faith in whatever it is they're saying, then that turned around on us and caused the problems. See, people, we can eat as healthy as we want to right now. We can. Nothing's stopping us. Maybe some items may be a little more expensive, some not, but the goods are there. We can do that. People don't. Why? It's not convenient. It's not as easy as going to McDonald's. It's not as easy as just taking a Ozempic pill. It takes effort. And we have grown into a nation that has the luxury of not having to put in effort to a lot of things. And that's the problem we see throughout our government and our society. We have trained ourselves to have less and less effort being put out on the things that absolutely require effort. And that's where the problem is. It's not the pharmaceutical company, it's not the FDA. They're doing the job. The problem is we're not asking the questions. We're not saying,
listen, I'm not trying to obfuscate everybody's personal responsibility. You know, I'm a personal responsibility guy. I believe everybody's got a personal responsibility. I eat like a fucking animal. Yeah, you know what? I expect to have heart problems. I expect to have high cholesterol. I expect to be, fat and unhealthy. I expect to have all of these problems and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to say is that the government has given everybody the idea that they are the trustworthy source for information, and that when you look at something that's got, like, you buy an electric,
not Frank, but we know.
Yeah, I know, but not. You listen. I know, you know. I know. I'm talking about the general public that's had it drummed into them that you can trust your government. Your government is there to help you. Our government agencies are there to protect you. And we've been being lied to and taught from school age that these are the organizations that we are supposed to be able to trust. So when a mom does, a young mother or a young father looks at a product, oh, is this product good? I don't know. Well, it's FDA approved. It's got to be good for good for Junior. They don't know any better. Yes, they don't know any better, and they haven't even been taught that they should be asking questions. We're taught now in school that we can't even question government.
That's a problem of parents. That's a problem.
But it's a problem. It's a problem of our complete society that we've taught our children to never question authority. And who's the one telling them not to question authority? Authority. And authority tells you not to question it.
And that's what you have parents for, to tell you not, and to change.
Right. And then when parents go to school boards, and when parents go here and go there, and they overwhelmingly support something in opposition to what the school board does, the school boards do exactly what they've been paid to do in the first place: ignore the wishes of the parents, and then tell the parents that the parents are wrong. We've given away the power.
One, get rid of the school board, but two, raise your child. The responsibility, again, goes back to the parent. It goes back to the individual. I don't care what government says. At this point, no one can point to we know that the news media right now has one of the lowest trust ratings in history. I think we're in the low double digits, somewhere around the teens. It's actually low. It's just been dropping and dropping over the last 30, 35 years. Consistently, we're below car salesmen in terms of public trust. We know they're lying. So you can't tell me, oh, well, the news said it, so it must be true. No, we know that's not the case. So why are we have the Library of Alexandria. Each and every one of us has a library. You have a cell phone. Library of Alexandria. More information on the cell phones than have been recorded in human history up until this point.
And when you use that, but you have to remember what did he who controls the information controls the masses. The information is controlled. It is so difficult to actually find true information. When you look up crime statistics, you look up health statistics, you'll find 60 different things on the same subject, all depending upon what peer research group paid for it.
No, you're looking at people's interpretation, and that's the difference. Again, people aren't paying attention to what they're looking at. When they say, oh, well, this person said, that person said, okay, you're looking at their interpretation of the source. And they always come back and say, and here's the source. Here's what we're talking about. When I quote data as a great example, I often say, okay, when we were talking about presidential races or many races, there's polling. Okay, and I look at the trend of polling. Why? Because any individual poll can be wrong. Why? When I go into the poll will tell me the data. Who put this poll together? Who paid for all the questions? Yes, people. Polls are. If I run a poll, I get to pick what the questions are. So I know how people will answer. It's a setup. But you get to find out who's in the poll, who is asked the questions. More women, more men, more poor people, more rich. You can manipulate any individual poll, but a trend of polls, well, that tells me something entirely different. Now, did anyone have to tell me that in a book and say, "Why you should be looking at the trend of the poll"? No, I just.
All right, but when you
understood it.
All right, but when you look at the data, you look at the polling, you look at all the information, you look at everything, and then look at the things that you and I believe in and things we don't believe in because we've actually done the research, okay?
Right.
Let's look at the COVID vaccine.
Oh,
we were told...
no one's going to see this now because...
No, I don't listen. People are going to see it; they're not going to see it. But we were all told it was safe. We were told it was safe, effective, had the best efficacy rates, had all the rest of that. We know that every company was out there manipulating the data. The media was manipulating the data. The government was manipulating the data, and to try and find the 3 or 4 scientists who were out there, the actual immunologists who were out there trying to tell the truth, they were silenced. You couldn't find the information on these people, and we were spoon-fed a lot of shit. We're spoon-fed. All right.
WHO out of Europe in the very early stages of this came out with the information directly. It was easily available for the public. I found it. Anyone could.
All right, you have been doing this kind of research and stuff for 20 plus years. You know where to find it. Just because you can find the information doesn't mean that somebody
in every international newspaper in the world.
And it was all scrubbed. You look for these things and things were scrubbed from the internet. You just said it yourself. We talk about COVID. You just said no one's going to see this. Why? Because they're going to scrub it. The same way they scrub the data. The same way they scrub the data with climate change and all the rest of that. When they talk about, 99.9% of scientists agree about this. No, they don't. But try to find the 0.01% that don't. You can't. It's hard to find them.
It's actually not. And it's not that the information, certain things are scrubbed. We're scrubbed. Yes, we're a very small channel. New York Times isn't scrubbed. BBC isn't scrubbed. Deutsche Welle, these are news agencies I'm mentioning, don't get scrubbed. You have to know where to look for the source.
Right. Does the average person know where?
But the average person needs to learn. That's the problem.
How do you
learn? And they will make mistakes, and that's okay.
Right,
learn.
but the
And
but
then
the
we will
average
go on.
person is not going to have Mike Vasquez stop at their house with the blueprint and show them how to do it.
How did Mike Vasquez figure it out? Because I did it through trial and error
Because
and learn.
you've been doing right for 20 years, you've been doing this, and you know what you're looking for. You're looking for data, you're looking for sources, you're looking for the people that you can trust, and all the rest of that. The average person doesn't, and that's the problem.
Right. It's easier now than when I did it 20 years ago. Again, my whole point is I'm not going to put. Yes, there is a blame you can put towards the government, absolutely, and there's a blame you could put towards the corporations, kind of, because they're doing exactly what they told you you're going to do. My thing is, individuals must emphasize on their responsibility. They are the first step. They are everything starts with the individual. If you fail, everything else fails after that. You fail to ask a question of your doctor. You fail to question the sources that are given to you by the news media. You fail to challenge or question your elected official. You have made the first failure. When there's a town hall, no, you can't make it. Fantastic. You can watch it. It's always televised now. You can see the questions. You can ask your own question through an email. You got the time. Everyone can do it. People can do these things. They don't want to. And people in other countries, third world nations, most particularly, do this every day. We are a first world nation, and we gave up that. That's the problem. First world, we became too comfortable. We need to be a little bit more.
Right, and what did we become? And what did we become comfortable with? Taking the word of authority.
Yeah, we take the word of authority.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. And when we did that, and we gave them the ability to make us comfortable, and everything that they say, do, and everything else, they start stacking the deck against us, and it becomes harder and harder for people, normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill people who are not like you, Mike, who have, 14 other things they have to do besides watch the news, because that's what you do. That's your job. Your job is to do the analytical shit. The rest of the world doesn't have the ability to do that. You do, because that's your job.
You know what the rest of the first world does? They spend, on average, about 40 hours a week, somewhere either online watching their favorite TV show, binging their whatever. They're on some cable program, 40 hours a week. Trust me, people have time. They don't want to. You can do it.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying they don't have the time. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the resources. They don't have the skill to know what you know.
No, that's that's the excuse. The answer is you.
I mean, if I had the time to have been a heart surgeon, I probably could have been a heart surgeon. I had other things to do.
Well, yes, you could.
That wasn't my chosen thing. It wasn't what I could do. I didn't have the resources to go to school. I didn't have the resources to do all the rest of the stuff. What I'm telling you is that the deck has been stacked against people, both on the information line and as far as being told what to believe, what not to. We've had the deck stacked against us because we gave away the authority, and now we're all at a disadvantage of never knowing what's right.
I fundamentally do not agree with that, because we have the power to make that change. We are individuals that can do this. This is my point on this. See, Grace is saying, take the job, surrender your weapons, tell boys they're girls, believe what the alphabet news tells you. These are steps we are taking. You can break that. You have, and I don't mean you, Frank, I mean you, the public, have the opportunity and have the capability to break this cycle at any point. It's just unpleasant. It's uncomfortable. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to be a process, but it can be done. And I hate when people are focused on overemphasizing the problems of other sectors. Should the government shrink its size? Absolutely. I agree with that. Do I think there are departments of the government that shouldn't exist? Absolutely. Like the ATF and the Department of Education. Absolutely. I agree with that. But at the same time, in all of these things, the individual must take the first step. They are the public. They are the American citizen. They must be the first step. Otherwise, nothing else. It doesn't matter. You can shrink this. Right now, Trump is shrinking the size of government. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's so wonderful. It's useless. I'm upset about this because he's doing it because of an executive order, which means the next person who gets to be president, they can turn it all around and turn it all back on because Congress isn't doing their job and not making this law, shutting down the Department of Education forever.
You get that Mo, what's his face? What's that senator, Mo something or other? I forget the guy's name.
There's a couple of them. Are you talking about Ro
No, he's actually going to try and introduce legislation this week to turn Trump's executive action into a law to instill that we get our preferential status because we should not be paying the rest of the freight for the rest of the world's medication because of the sympathetic pricing system, because that's what it's actually called. We do it with everything. Yeah, we do it with all of our export, with drugs, with food, with exports, everything.
You know where that came from? From the government. The government made that rule. The pharmaceuticals just took advantage of the rules that the United States put in place. The government put in place.
The pharmacy doesn't give a shit where they get their money from, but if they can get their money from Americans, why the hell not? We're a lot more trustworthy than the third world countries are.
They were told by the government to do it in this manner. That's why they do it this way. That's why the biggest share is on America. You're right. They don't care.
Yeah, but you're on
different countries.
But listen, the corporations, these big companies, they're the ones that are paying off all of the special PAC money to all of these companies to institute the laws, rules, and regulations they want installed. It's not like
the only way we stop that is the individual has to actually pay attention to their elected official and actually be involved in the process. Again, it comes back to the individual. It's not about Congress. It's not about the member of Congress, not about the company. It's about you taking action and saying, hey, I want this done. And you tell all your neighbors to go out and you vote. It is about being aware that this is a bill that's actually going to be up and available for people to vote on.
Let me ask you this.
Mike.
Let me ask you guys this.
What's up,
question? Mike? I want you guys
to hear you.
Think about.
Barely hear you.
I want you guys to think about this. Okay, I want you guys to think about this seriously. If you had a multinational corporation, right, and you could boost your sales by overcharging one country and charging all the other countries less money, wouldn't you do that?
My problem is I don't have a problem with the pharmaceutical companies, what they're doing. What they're doing is legal. I don't have a problem with them.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Okay, if they can do this, right, because of rules and situations that are set in place, they're going to do it because they do what corporations do, which is to increase their bottom line. That's the whole purpose of a corporation.
Yeah, they're making money. They want to make money at no matter what. At the end of the day, they'll do whatever the government says is the law so that they can make money. They just want to know what the law is so they can make their money, which is why my problem isn't with the pharmaceutical companies and their current process. It's
but
the individual.
But the point is, it's not that the corporations are saying, well, the government said to do this, so that's what we're doing. These companies, look at the censorship thing, all right? Look at how many things came across with net neutrality. Let's look at net neutrality for a minute. Why was net neutrality ultimately embraced and pushed by all of the big communication corporations? Because they knew damn well that they would be able to absorb any fines, rules, and regulations that the smaller companies couldn't do, so that when the smaller companies found themselves in financial dire because they couldn't adhere to those standards, they could come in and buy up all the smaller companies at a loss and increase their market share. Why did they do that? No, let me finish my.
There's a fundamental problem with what you're saying, because it didn't start with the companies. Net neutrality came from the politicians. The corporations.
No, you're wrong.
No, it came from the corporations, and Excuse me. It came from the politicians who were looking at a way to create censorship.
But where did
the corporations who took advantage of that
but
created
where
a framework and gave it back to the politicians, and that became net neutrality.
The problem is the corporations are the ones that come up with the ideas, and they buy the politicians off to write the legislation to put through Congress because it benefits them. It's called lobbying. They create the things, and they tell the politicians what they want them to do, and that's why the politicians don't listen to the people, because they listen to the money. They don't listen to the people. The companies come up with an idea or strategy that they figure out how is going to benefit them the most. They contribute the money to the PACs and the politicians and say, listen, this is what we would like to have done, and here's $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. Go do it. The politicians ignore the will of the people, follow the money, pass the legislation that benefits the companies the most, and screws the small guy, and screws the little guy. These things don't come up out of the ether. Debbie Dingle didn't come up with an idea on how to do this. This was done by...
That's true, but that isn't always true, because sometimes the politician will come up with the idea and go to the corporation, so the corporation can put the framework together, talking to other corporations, and that's back. In the case of net neutrality, it started with the politicians because it was about censorship, and it was the attempt to create censorship, and they needed a framework, which is why they went to the experts, the actual corporations that were involved in the internet overlords, and they came out and said, well, if you're going to do it, this is the way we can do it that'll benefit the largest of the corporations, and that's what they gave back.
But everything that benefits, whether all of these companies, all of these politicians, all of these governments, whatever it is, all have one thing in common. The weight is all borne on the back of the American citizen. We don't have the voice in it because we don't have the money to go into these offices and bribe these politicians with. They put these things out, and they don't care if they hurt us in the process. They just want to be able to get their re-election and their campaign coffers full.
We don't need the money. We have the people. We have the number of people. The problem is the people are too comfortable. The people are too lazy. The people are doing the work.
They don't care about you or your vote or your voice. They don't care about it. 2,000
reach, and the 10,000 you can reach, and the 10,000 that Marshall meets. That's 30,000. That changes an election, possibly in the entire state. And to show you why they don't care about the people, look at the last presidential election. We don't matter. Sure. Not the one that Trump just won. I'm talking about the one before that. Which is why we saw the irregularities in that election as well. Because they did care. Because they were scared. And that's why we couldn't see the same irregularities that everyone paid attention to, saw them, went to court, highlighted them on social media, couldn't do the same trick twice. So they didn't do it again. And we had a very, very different outcome, because that was an aberration in all of the elections that have been going on. It's a massive aberration.
Well, do you know why you didn't see it this time around, but you saw it last time around? January 6th. Because politicians saw 1 million people storm in Washington, D.C., and they say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do this again, because maybe they'll come to our states instead of the government, instead of the national capital.
No, I don't think 300,000 people there did not do that. That wasn't the case. It was the fact that people were paying attention to the argument, other arguments, not even the January 6th arguments, but the other arguments about this. And we did see many of the irregularities brought into courts that were shown. We got the evidence. We saw everything we were told, oh, that doesn't happen, except it did happen. Oh, this doesn't really happen. It did happen. And
how many of those cases, when they got in front of a judge, the judge dismissed it and said it was irrelevant?
Some, not all.
Dozens and dozens.
Some,
Dozens.
not all.
They did. They didn't. They underestimated what the American response was going to be to the previous election. That's why weren't able to get away with it this time, because people were going to be watching closer than they did the previous time. Nobody knew they were going to steal the election like they did the last time, so we weren't prepared for it.
Mike, jump in.
This time we were. We were prepared this time. But what I'm just telling you is that between the politicians and the big corporations that own the politicians, you don't mean a thing to them, and neither do I, and neither the other 300 million American people. The only thing we are to them is a wallet with feet. We just walk around and they just keep taking as much as they want from us, whether it's our freedom, our money, our liberty, whatever it is. They don't care. And they will continue to push their best interest and not ours.
Okay. I was asking Mike to jump in a couple of times there. Jump in, Mike.
Well, Frank makes some great points. Okay, and I'm not going to deny that. But here's the other thing that we got to understand. We have allowed this. Maybe not this generation, but the American people have allowed this. And it literally started back around the 1900s when we started allowing government to take more and more power away from us. Okay, started letting them literally ignore the Constitution. And that's why we are in the state that we are in today. Okay, this isn't something that happened overnight. It isn't something that happened in a generation. It's gotten progressively worse with each generation. Except now we are seeing it snowballing even faster than what we've seen in the past. That's why corporations are able to buy elections. That's why corporations are able to buy politicians. Okay? Because we have literally given the power to the dollar and no longer to the people.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Frank.
Yes.
You're the one, by the way, you notice we went through this whole thing here from something that was very innocuous. You missed half of it, Mike. Frank's just like running through like 15 different topics, each of them being very important. But and my core, the core of everything, of all these different things, whether it be the drug companies, elections, all of that, everything comes back to the individual. And that is where I think the first failure is. Healthcare, MAHA, all of that. The individual. Whether it's an election, whether it's a drug.
And where that started breaking down was the early 1900s. That's when people started becoming less involved in politics. That's where people stopped holding government accountable.
Yeah, but I think it's most recently. We've seen it in the last 30 years. In the last 30 years, people have been both in schools and in life in general. As we've gotten more instantaneous.
No, within the last 40 years.
Go ahead.
Because Reagan was starting to actually turn things around a little bit. But when Clinton got back into office, he started pushing things back the other way.
I think it's partially because we have social media. We had the growth of social media in the 90s. And with the social media, we had more access to more information, and we have more people, more of the government telling us, don't look. And we said, okay, we don't need to look, because why do I need to double check my politicians? They don't lie to me that much. Yes, they do. Why do I have to double check the government's numbers? They wouldn't make it up or retroactively change the numbers after the fact. They wouldn't do that to me. Yes, they do, on a regular basis. Now we actually have the record. But we've been trusting them so much. And the kids nowadays don't even question. They don't even double check even after the fact. We get told up front that, hey, you buy this, you use this drug, there's a side effect. Every drug known to man that has ever been created by man has a side effect. Biden comes out and says, there's no side effect. You're lying. You are a blatant, absolute liar. Every drug ever created by man has a side effect. All of them. Whether it's a big or a little one, they all have them. Biden goes, there's no side effect. You instantly everyone should have alarm bells ringing going, that is an absolute lie. Perfect, absolute lie. That's the thing that snake oil salesmen used to say in the 1900s. People said,
and I'm going to actually contradict.
We're
going to contradict your start of this. Okay, social media really didn't get its rise until the early 2000s. Okay, in the 90s, okay, the earliest platform that was considered social media was 6 Degrees, which was in 1997.
I don't remember when AOL came out, but I know that there were moos and muds. There were platforms in colleges before you got the full rollout to the public.
There wasn't really platforms. Huh? There were billboards. Okay, and that was late 80s, early 90s, and that's kind of what led rise to the internet. But there really wasn't any type of social media per se. Social media really got its off the ground with MySpace and Friendster.
I would say, well, easily there was AOL long before there was MySpace.
AOL was a dial-up service.
Huh?
AOL was a connection service.
AOL was social media.
No,
depends on how you define social media. But AOL, at least by my definition.
No, AOL is not social media. AOL was an internet service provider.
Everything's an internet service. Well, that's not true. They provided content and they also provided interaction. And is the combination of those two things that is what we consider social media. But again, that's a bit far afield of my main point of the individual is the most important key of this. And without the individual being involved, everything else fails. The drug prices aren't the problem. It's the people taking the drug. That's the problem. And the government is more than happy to, since people are going to do it, they're more than happy to take their piece of the pie and the power because of that. And that's the same thing we see with foods. That's the same thing we see with everything else. The same process.
And honestly, as far as pharmaceutical companies go and medicine in general goes, it is far more profitable to keep somebody sick than it is to heal.
Yeah, but that's not new. I don't care. That's always been the point of healthcare, modern medicine. Of course it is. And it's also the more dependent you are, the weaker you are, the more dependent you are on government, and therefore it's good for politicians as well. That's not new. We know that. Mm-hmm. But people they fall into that trap. It's easy. And that's why people do it, because it's easy. It's the easy way out. The hard way out is deal with it, live with it, sort of overcome it. That's the hard part. And to a certain extent, that's part of the pushback against the Maha movement. They're attacking RFK Jr., who, by the way, I would never vote for as president. I don't agree with him. He's a Democrat. He's a progressive. But I think he is good as the head of HHS. He's good for that role. And I do believe he has, in his heart, he believes that he's doing the right thing. He's right when he said, one of the biggest quotes going around right now today is, no one should be listening to RFK Jr. for medical advice. That's true. That's also true about the Surgeon General. No one should be looking at the Surgeon General for medical advice. You shouldn't be looking for the government for your medical advice. You should be having a conversation with your doctor only, and you should be asking questions, and then you make your own decision. That's what.
And one of the big questions you should be asking is, where is your doctor getting his information from?
Well, that's
if he's
easy.
saying CDC or NIH, then you need to be questioning it.
I would say question them no matter where they get it from. Always question. There's always a question, no matter where the source is coming from. You can always question them because just because there's a study with 50 people back 100 years ago doesn't mean it still applies or applies to me. And that's a whole thing. But here's the thing: they're attacking individuals to protect the system. The system is compliant. It is blind allegiance. It is a lack of information. It is an individual turning themselves into a checkbox or a category rather than being an agent, an individual making decisions on their own. And that's ultimately my biggest problem. Does that make sense to you, Frank, where my biggest problem is about that?
Well, again, like I said, I don't have any disagreement with the idea that the individual is ultimately responsible at the end of it. My problem is the fact that the individual in so many cases has got so many disadvantages as far as being able to obtain the correct information. I mean, how many people have we seen shut down because they spoke out about one thing or another? You couldn't find it. If you asked questions, you got your account suspended. If you brought up a topic, you'd get your account suspended. It gets to the point where you got to say, okay, the system is something seriously wrong when you can't even ask questions when you're looking for information. Forget about actually finding the information, just asking the questions about the information. How dare you question the narrative? If you question the narrative, and that's the problem I have. That's the problem. You can say, again, everybody can spend time looking for this, looking for that, but, not everybody's got the time to look for that needle in the haystack. And not only that, how do they even know that the needle that they're looking for is the needle that they are looking for when somebody throws 100 other needles at them telling them that they're all facts? Again, it gets very difficult to break it down for the average ordinary person, especially when
I disagree because the average person, if they put in the time, can do this. Social media may shut you down, but that doesn't take away your access to the internet.
No, but
answers. You can't share the answers.
But Vass, you are talking from an extremely unique situation. Maybe. Okay, you're talking from a position that you don't have the ability to talk about other positions in, because the average person who's got a couple of kids running around the house, who's got a husband and wife, car payment, rent payment, house payment, they got a job, maybe the wife got a job, they got to worry about, the kids coming home from school, they got to worry about this, worry about that. You have, believe it or not, the luxury of time that a lot of other people don't have access to.
And I don't agree. That is an excuse I do not accept, because everyone, now I may have more time than many, many, many people. Fantastic. Do not question that. To say that people don't have the time, that is a fallacy. People do have the time. They just don't want to. They don't want to spend their time on this. They could spend time on this. They don't want to, because you're
asking people to expend time and energy that they probably don't have at their disposal.
I'm saying they do have it, because
when
they have the time, they just don't want to allocate it.
No, Marshall, how many hours a week did you put in last week?
Too many.
And how much time did you put into entertainment?
57.
Okay, and how much time did you put into entertainment? I'm talking about all forms of entertainment.
Not much, actually.
In the entire week?
All right.
Is it more than an hour a day? All forms of entertainment.
Recently, no.
Okay.
Right now let's add 2 kids into Marshall's mix. Let's add a wife into Marshall's mix, a wife that's got to work too.
Wait. Before you add that, what would be your normal, not recently, what is your normal amount of entertainment do you put in a week? Not in a day, in a week.
Might watch a couple hours of TV at night. During the day,
Okay,
if I'm listening to anything, it's some type of research book, typically history or something like that. But I'm not normal.
Right. Okay. You're not normal.
You just identified 3 hours a day. That's 7 days a week. That's 21 hours. You mean to tell me 21 hours, there's none of that time? If you took 10% of that, 2 hours out of the entire week, you could achieve the things I'm talking about.
All right. But let's ask the question, though. Now, you just identified 21 hours. Now let's give Mike, like the American people, let's give him 2.3 kids to take care of that are all school age. All right, that's 2.3 kids an hour. An hour a day. He's got to make sure that those kids are fed. You got to make sure those kids are washed. Got to make sure that they do their homework, their education. Now let's say 2.3 and times that by 7. Now you got 17. Now that leaves Mike with 3 hours a week that he's left over that he can do any kind of research for himself to try and find out. Now he's got no time for himself. He's got no time for his wife. Now ask about a wife. Ask about the dog. Ask about the chores he's got at the house. Ask about making sure the car's running right.
Every study is. I can only go by the study.
Look, I'm not
example, but every study, and I can only go by the averages. Everyone has the time. It is not. I understand life sucks and life is busy. Everyone has the time if it's important.
Listen, there are things that are important, but there are things that are important like family. There are things that are important like your own health, your own mental health, your job. I work 40 hours plus a week, and then I do another 30 hours a week for doing the shit that I'm doing for L1F. I'm doing the other stuff. I have a house I have to maintain. I got cars I have to maintain. I got bills I have to pay that my job doesn't pay. I don't have any kids, but I got 3 dogs, 7 cats, and 4 fish, and I got a wife. I don't have the time. Now, if I do have the time, if I do have 3 or 4 hours a week, which I don't, that I could sit around and watch TV. You know when I sit and watch TV? When I go to sleep at night and I crawl into the bed, Lori sets a sleep timer for 30 minutes and I get to watch Frasier with my eyes closed for 30 minutes a night before I go to sleep. I need that to settle off because I just worked 12 hours for the day. I don't have the time to sit and do the other stuff. And now for the people that do have the time, now you're going to ask them to parse between the 95% of bullshit that they would have to go through to get to the 5% of reality. They don't have and when they do find the 5%, they can't fucking identify it. Well, so how are people going to find all of this? Okay. Where are they going to find the time and then find the truth?
You know what? Everyone can. And as you go through the process, you get to learn. And yes, people will make mistakes. That is part of the process. But again, we're going back over to saying we're in a loop right now. We're in a loop in terms of, at least for me, this is a loop of, because I come back to the same answer every time. To me, you never escape my initial answer, no matter where we go on this. So I'm not saying, I'm not discounting you, Frank. I'm just saying, perhaps, and I know Joel's he's saying, hey, Mike, you may be giving people too much credit. You may be misunderstanding. Maybe I am. Maybe this is my bias. It is. Okay. But I don't see that being incorrect. It's just the way I see it.
Well, you know what the people are, Mike? I'll tell you what the people are. The people are the California Gold Rush. They're the 49ers. They're the 49ers. They spend 80 hours a week digging through the dirt to try and find a half-ounce nugget that they can cash in. And in the meantime, they're finding pyrite and fool's gold on the way. By the time they find the gold, they don't even know if they found it because they can't identify it. That's what I'm trying to say. Is people today are fed, spoon-fed, so much disinformation from our government, from the companies that we trust, from the companies that our government is supposed to regulate, but it's the companies that regulate the government. We don't know anymore. We have been proven time and time again that we are spoon-fed lie after lie after lie, and that by the time you try and disseminate between one lie and the truth, you can't even tell the difference anymore. And then when you add into that with the regular lives that people have to live, the economy being what it is, that the dollar is worth 30% of what it was 45 years ago, and people got to work twice as much to earn half as much. It's hard for people. It's hard for people. You have to have trusted sources. That's why you have a job, Vas. That's why your job is out there. Your job is out there to try and come up with the facts for the people that don't have the time. Because you do. You have got the 20 years plus of experience in trying to research stuff for the people like me who don't have the time. Or the people like Marshall that don't. Or like my neighbor with his 3 kids. That's your job. You're supposed to be the person that trusts us. You can't always say, well, it's going to come down to you having to find all of that. If everybody could find all the information, nobody would need you. But we need you because we, right, but people need you to do what they can't. Not a matter of what they're not willing to do, what they can't do.
I don't agree.
It's what they can't. If you want people to come home from work, pat little Johnny and little Mary on the head, tell them to go to bed and never spend any time with their children, and then wonder why the government's raising our fucking kids in school instead of parents, then fine, maybe people have the time. Maybe when the divorce rate hits 95 because husbands and wives can't spend any time together because they're researching whether or not the aspirin they're going to take is going to kill little Bobby.
And now you're taking it to the extremes that are unrealistic. But I'm going to let it go because there's other stuff to talk about. We fundamentally disagree.
One thing I do want to talk about is the plane.
We talked about, Qatar, yeah.
Okay. Trump cannot accept it.
Yeah.
It's not his to accept.
It's not his decision anyway.
Okay. I mean, literally, even if it was given directly to him, he cannot accept it. Okay, that would be a direct violation of the Constitution.
Well, presidents can accept gifts during their term of office, but they cannot personally accept it. It becomes the property of the federal government. So any of the shit that you ever see people giving the presidents or anything else like that, the gun that Elvis Presley gave to Richard Nixon is in the Smithsonian because Richard Nixon couldn't accept it. Any gift.
The portraits,
right? Any gift,
the busts, the artwork, the desk, the presidential desk is a presidential desk. It's not property of the president themselves. So I don't think the problem is
that was presented to the nation. That wasn't presented to. Okay, hold on a second. I'm bringing it up.
That's called the Resolute desk, by the way, and there's an exact duplicate of it in Buckingham Palace. With the exception of the one in Buckingham Palace doesn't have the little trap door in the front that FDR had installed during his administration to prevent the media from seeing the wheelchair that was underneath it, that was later made famous by John Kennedy Jr., opening up the little trapdoor when his father was sitting at the Resolute desk, peeking out, looking at the media. There's a famous picture of John Kennedy Jr. underneath the Resolute desk with the little door open.
Yes, I remember that.
But
you know what I thought you were trying to say? National Treasure, the movie with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, they talked about it in
the trapdoor inside, and
yeah.
I thought that's what you were referencing.
I don't think the Resolute desk has any of the little hidden compartments that they detailed in the movie. I think it's just a desk. But I know that FDR had the door installed on the front of it with the presidential seal on it. That's the only difference between that one and the one at Buckingham Palace. And yes, Monica did see that angle of it.
Yeah, that's true. What are you looking for, Mike?
There's a clause in the Constitution. I'm trying to find it.
All right.
Well, we're just talking
directly to this.
Yeah, well, that's while you're looking for it, we're just conversing to make sure we don't have dead air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I know there's an aspect of it. I know we already went back and forth about Qatar, and I know Mike's going to be looking at it from a constitutional point of view, which is good. Because it would be nice to see that the consensus from all points of view, political and personal and also constitutional, would all say that, well, one, I don't think it's that big a deal, honestly, but it's not worth it. It as a politically, if Congress lets it go through, that's on Congress. I think it's stupid. I don't think we should do it. It's not, again, as we said earlier, it's a security risk. It's not worth it. And it was really a statement by Qatar about their involvement with the United States as they're having negotiations with Hamas, who finally gave us, you guys have heard me screaming about this since October, well, with you guys since October 10th, literally since October 8th of 2023, I have been screaming about the American hostages held by Hamas. We now have every living hostage back home. But go ahead, Mike.
Well, this was my share screen. This is the photo that I was talking about of JFK Jr. under the Resolute desk looking through the trap door that FDR had installed while his father was president. That's the photo that I was mentioning.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I have seen that. It is famous. It is very famous.
There is a clause in the Constitution that speaks directly to this when pertains to foreign powers.
Well, I don't doubt it. I mean, we've been getting stuff from foreign powers since the beginning, France in particular.
That's been presented to the United States, not to an individual.
Right. And
well,
as far as I understand,
the plane, from what I gather, is not being presented to Trump. It's being presented to the United States Air Force through the Department of Defense, so that Trump could use it in lieu of Air Force One while we're waiting for Boeing to finalize their commitment that they're 3 years late on the plane.
right.
So it's not for Trump.
Presented or lent to the United States, that's a whole different story.
Right, and that's the thing. It's been, here, Mr. President, here's a plane for you to use, but he can't accept the plane. That's got to go through bureaucratic channels and go through the Department of Defense, and from the Department of Defense assigned to the U.S. Air Force. Say again, your mic broke up.
Technically, it has to go through Congress.
Right. Which is what I said earlier. But
Right. Well, just because they've made the overture doesn't mean we have the plane.
right. And I don't think it's necessary. The whole point, and I honestly, Qatar doesn't, this has been a bigger issue than it should be. Qatar doesn't care if we take the plane. Trump doesn't care if we take the plane. It's not about that. The only people who care about this plane, quite literally, are the Democrats, because they're trying to use it to say Orange Man bad. But it's a signal to the rest of the world about political alignment, as I said, with Hamas and Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis. It's a message to them.
Yeah, they're trying to say, look how strong the relationship between us and the United States is. I mean, if you look at, matter of fact, if you look at what happened when Trump landed over in the Middle East, all right, a couple of things happened. The royal prince of Saudi Arabia is the one that met him at the tarmac.
Right.
That goes against royal protocol. It was supposed to be someone lower on the chain of command in the royal family that was supposed to go meet Trump at the airport, not him. The fact that there was the prince himself that went there is a big deal. Now, the other thing that was kind of a big deal that a lot of people kind of overlooked, the Saudis don't use a red carpet for presidential dignitaries. They use a purple carpet. You know what nobody picked up on? I picked up on it, though. For the first time in the tenure of Donald Trump in his presidency, both the first term and this, was the first time he wore a purple tie. He wore a tie to match the color of the rug that was in Saudi Arabia. Okay, and he did that specifically as a show of respect, mutual respect back and forth for the Crown Prince. You know, to say this is a new era that we have here in our relationship. And that's why the plane thing is taking place. It was just because, now think about it. Why would the Saudis gift a plane to the President of the United States, or to the United States government for that matter? Why would they do that? How would they know that Boeing's commitment is 3 or 4 years late? That they would make that gesture? Nobody should know what Boeing's commitment to replace the aging fleet of Air Force One and Air Force Two is, but yet they know about that. You know, so it's a political stunt. It's a political stunt because, I mean, not for nothing, Air Force One could go another 20 years without being replaced. It's just being replaced out of timed obsolescence, you know, out of contract. Boeing is the one that screwed the contract. They screwed the pooch by coming in late. But why would the Saudis make that? Did Trump call him up and go, oh, yeah, my plane's broken down on the runway again. Oh, don't worry, we'll send one for you. That conversation didn't take place. Somewhere the Saudis said, hey, we understand you got trouble with Boeing fulfilling their commitment. If you want, we got this brand new one here. You can have this one until you get your other plane. We'll let you guys use this one. You know, it's a public relations thing. But why would they have done it if they didn't know that the contract was already late? So that lends the question, who at Boeing is talking to the Saudis, and why is the plane late to begin with?
Well, I would like to say, why is it late? Because it was late under the Biden-Harris administration. No one in the Biden-Harris administration was paying enough attention to say, hey, what's going on with this contract? And here's the thing. The reason I think it wasn't asked is because the news media would then have to respond. The news media would follow it, and it would make Joe Biden look bad, Kamala look bad, Democrats would look bad, and so that's why no one asked. Well, no one told.
Yeah, well, the two planes in question were supposed to be delivered to the U.S. Air Force between 2017 and 2023, which, excuse me, that's a big friggin' window for two planes. Oh, that is a big time frame for two friends. You should have that thing set in stone. January 1st, 2018, two planes land at Dulles Airport or wherever the hell they got to fly them into, and they should have been there on time, whether that or the contract gets canceled. Yeah, Boeing should be paying a huge fee.
Oh yeah,
a huge fee for that.
I don't doubt you.
Okay, so here's the clause.
Okay, yeah, move closer to the mic. I can barely hear you.
Okay, here's the clause. This is Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 of the Constitution. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state.
Right.
Okay, so if Congress consents to accepting that from Qatar, then Trump can use it. Okay, but ultimately it comes down to Congress.
Yeah.
Okay, and Congress is the one that can say yes or no on it.
Right, but that doesn't sound as good as Orange Man bad. He's being bought off. This is a Qatari bribe.
Right.
Because Qatari bribe will get progressives out to vote and donate because they don't know any better.
And honestly, everybody's presenting. I don't think Trump's even committed to saying, yes, I'm taking this.
Well,
Or
listen.
no, I'm
Well,
not.
I have Trump's solution to the whole thing. All he has to do is say, "I identify that plane as Air Force One," and it's done. I guess the joke went over both your heads.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah,
I was reading one of the comments. Sorry.
yeah. This plane now identifies as Air Force One, and then that's it because anything can be anything these days.
Yeah.
So that would be it.
Yeah, anyone can identify as that.
Believe me, if the goddamn plane came painted in a goddamn rainbow, it would have had no goddamn problem with it all together for anything at all.
Yeah, well, guess what?
If it would have been a transatlantic air flight, we wouldn't have a problem.
Well, to go to your point of
That was another joke that just like the airplane went right over your head.
no, that one went overhead. But
It's transatlantic. Jesus Christ.
don't blame the
Mike.
audience, blame the comic.
I'm blaming you.
I'm blaming the
Marshall
comic. It's a bad joke.
Marshall got that joke. It's transatlantic.
Whatever. No idea. But I can tell you what you can identify as a lot of things, but right now David Hogg cannot identify as the vice chairman of the DNC.
Now think about that. Think about how screwed. All right, they ousted David Hogg in a midnight vote to get rid of David Hogg as chairman because he's too radical. He's too radical for the DNC.
No, it's even funnier than that. It's even funnier than that. They got rid of David. They vacated his.
Yeah, they kicked the
Chairmanship, his position.
vice chairman. Yeah.
They vacated it because there wasn't enough gender diversity.
Well, the excuse of his being kicked out is that originally, when the vote came down, they didn't have enough diversity, in particular gender diversity, but it called diversity. There wasn't enough diversity at the time, which is stupid and obvious. And now several other people now have to go back into the voting process because they also were at the same time as in the same vote as Hogg. So there's at least one other somebody in the Democrats who has to now go back and get revalidated, voted in again. But what I think is the bigger thing and the bigger joke, the thing that makes me laugh is the Democrats want to tell you they're all about representation. They're democratic. They are they are democracy. 2024, they wouldn't let anyone go up against Joe Biden. They did everything they could to twist and bend and punish people for daring to even try and think about running against Joe Biden. They kicked RFK out of their party to silence him because how dare you think about actually running against Joe Biden? When Joe Biden blew up because they've been hiding the truth from the American people that he was a part-time zombie president, they instantly put in Kamala Harris. No vote. Rank and file didn't have anything to say about it. They said, we're the elites. We've picked Kamala Harris. We had a couple of backdoor deals and made some phone calls. She's in. You got her. Now, David Hogg, you voted for David Hogg. We supported David Hogg. Well, he's out. Why? Because he said the wrong thing. We don't like what he's saying. He's asking for younger people to replace 80-year-olds who've been in office for 4 decades, longer than most of the voting Democrats today. The majority of their base haven't been alive as long as these people have been in their offices. How dare you consider, even question somebody actually just sitting in a room and saying, I'd like to challenge you here. Let's ask a question or two. Let me see if it's, I got a better idea in the room. It is funny in that way that they are revealing how authoritarian the Democratic Party is. Not that David Hogg is any better. He is not. His first act as vice chair was to make money. He took the donor roles and he used it for his private company to raise money for himself. That was the first thing Hogg did.
Well, that's probably another reason they ousted him, because there's probably going to wind up being a criminal indictment being brought down on him for that, because we know he did violate the law. If what they said he did is what he did, it was a violation of law, and he'll probably wind up getting indicted for it. What I find hysterical is the fact that I've heard people talk about that he's too radical. He's too radical for the guys who are flying down to El Salvador to hang out with MS-13 members while ignoring the murdered American girls that illegal aliens have left in their wake. He's too radical for them. They embrace every goddamn thing under the sun that is a counterintuitive, counter-American, but David Hogg is too radical because he wants younger people to be part of the group. But I think it really comes down to it. I think they don't want to be stained by having their vice chair get caught up in an indictment. I think that's where it is.
I don't know. That would be interesting. I don't know.
Well, David Hogg wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Kalin Free, who's an Oklahoma activist, who was seeking one of the vice chair slots, filed this challenge. Okay, and she filed it about 2 months ago, more than 2 months ago. Okay, and her argument is the DNC broke its rules on gender diversity in party officer elections, invalidating the election of Hogg and a second vice chair, Macomb Kenyatta. Okay.
Kenyatta, yeah,
So
that's the one.
both vice chairs elections were invalidated based on this.
Yeah, but it's an example of Kenyatta's the one I was referring to. I couldn't remember his name because he's a loser. I don't care about him. But I think it's more important that we understand, and it's not being framed this way. It's the truth, but it's not being framed as the Democrats are revealing their authoritarianism. They're trying to cover this so many ways to justify Orange Man bad and to give themselves a fighting chance in 2026, if not 2028. But the fact is, we are being shown and have consistently been shown since 2021, they are absolutely authoritarian. And this is just the latest step of their authoritarianism. And I just can't imagine. I don't understand how everyone isn't just waking up in the morning going, oh my God, Democrats, progressives, they're the same thing politically, and they're authoritarian. Yeah. I don't understand how this party still exists.
No, they are. They're one of the most authoritarian parties.
Well,
they cry that the Republican Party is the one that's authoritarian.
As long as there's an opportunity to try and get communism right, Democrats will exist.
You're funny, Frank. Communism can't be done right. It's just communism. And it's always failed.
But Marshall, you're 100% right. The Democrats have proven themselves time and time again to be the authoritarian party. And they are the masters of the long game. They're the masters of authoritarianism, and they are the masters of putting a label on someone else when it really belongs on yourself.
Right.
That's what they're good at. I mean, the other thing they're good at, I got to admit, they're good at poisoning the youth. They're really good at poisoning the youth. I know a lot of conservative parents that have sent their kids off to college somewhere, and the kids come back with half-shaved heads, piercings up the ear. The rest of the hair is dyed purple, green, and blue, and they got facial tattoos and everything else. Coming home talking about DEI as their new religion. Yeah. They're really good at destroying people, and that's what really is the lingering side effect that I don't think a lot of young people understand, is that the things that they wind up doing to themselves when they're in that vulnerable state of mind between 18 and 22, when your brain is almost developed but not quite, is that the things that you're going to embrace at that period in time, by the time you realize how screwed up and wrong you are, you've already done so much damage to your potential future or to your body that it's going to be irreversible. I mean, you got a lot of these these kids are out there, they're sterilizing themselves because they don't like Donald Trump. They're getting sex changes because they don't like the patriarchy. And by the time they realize what everything really looks like in the world, it's going to be too late for them. It's going to be too late. If we look back at our kids, how many of us, the three of us around the same age, when we were all in grade school, was there anybody with ADD?
No,
not really. No.
Was it? No, there was nobody with ADD. There was nobody with peanut allergies. There was nobody that had any of these psychological. Oh, maybe an allergy here and there, but not to the way it is today, where kids could eat bread when we were kids. They could eat bread and not shit themselves. All right, that's what they could do. You look at how bad it's gotten from then until now. All right, on all of these weird social issues that have come up, and then imagine what it's going to be like 30 years from today. If we don't right that ship and start educating kids the right way to say black is white, white is black, gray is somewhere in the middle, and a cat is a cat and a dog is a dog, we're going to have a lot more problems in the future. And I can't imagine. I mean, they went from 2 genders to 6,075 in 35 years.
Infinite. They actually, at one point, they were saying there are infinite other genders. There was actually professors saying that and teaching kids that. It's stupid, but
yeah, Joel said it right. The confession by projection. You're right, Joel. That's what the word I was looking for. It's that projection. It's like we always hear about them talking about their violent rhetoric, but it's but all the violence that happens takes place on the left. We talk about they talk about their hatred for this one, the racist policies, but they're the ones who insist that immigrants are only good for picking lettuce and cleaning hotel rooms. That's all they ever think about. Who's gonna manicure my lawn if Pedro gets deported? Is that all Pedro's good for? Don't you think Pedro, if he was an American citizen, might aspire to be something more than that? Maybe now there's nothing wrong with being a landscaper. I think it's a noble profession. I think it's something that's needed. I think some of these guys, I see some topiaries that are absolutely magnificent, works of art. Some of these guys are artists. You see the masons, the stonemasons, the tile setters, the plumbers, the electricians, the carpenters. These are people that are skilled. They have the ability to create masterpieces, but they're told that if they come here illegally, it's better than coming here legally. And then when they come here and they get deported, they get relegated into the lowest possible denomination, instead of ever acknowledging that they might actually want something more for themselves than to live 16 people in a tenement, hiding in the shadows. It's the Democrats that show their racism. Vass, how many times have somebody called you the N-word because you espouse conservative politics, or they call you an Uncle Tom, or they call you something else, but because you had the nerve to stray from the plantation.
Well, I can say literally in 20 years of doing interviews and covering public events, like going out to various all the parties and going to their rallies, their riots, all of that stuff. I can tell you that I think there was about twice, maybe 3 times when I was running as a candidate that I had people say, "But aren't you a Democrat?" I'm like, "No, I'm a Republican." They're like, "But you're black." I'm like, "No, yeah, I'm black.
Well-
I'm Hispanic, but I'm a Republican." And that's as far as, and that's from the right. That's what I got from the right. A handful of times going, "But you're black, so aren't you a Democrat?" On the left, when I cover left, meaning, I get every racial slur. I get called every racial slur. I've seen them put it in social media. I actually have pictures of screenshots of them calling me every racial slur you can possibly imagine. I have news media coverage as well as my own video live stream coverage of 50, if not 75 members of the progressive left surrounding me, threatening to attack me and calling me every racial slur you could possibly imagine because I was running for an elected office as a Republican, not a Democrat. And we can also see, that's my anecdotal evidence, but let's look at what we're seeing right now. University of Washington. There was an attempted arson. Building was attempted to be taken over. Who did that? That was the progressive left. Over at Columbia, who's tried to take over the buildings and threaten many of the students and occupy the buildings. That was the progressive left. Same thing at Harvard. We've seen this in college after college at college, in Binghamton University, Cornell University. It's the progressive left.
Well, look at the most absolute blatant example of projection. They call conservatives Nazis. But the Palestinians that want to destroy the Jews are in the Democrat Party. The Muslims that want to destroy the Jews are in the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party openly is hostile against Israel and everything that has to do. They're occupiers, they're colonizers, they're this, they're that, they're everything else. Which party was it that moved the embassy to Jerusalem? The Republican Party under a Donald Trump administration. We get called everything that they are. And then the youth goes ahead and believes it. And then I see some pink-head, trans people standing around draping themselves in a Palestinian flag. And I'm like, go visit. Go visit. Please, I will buy you the friggin' plane ticket. Go visit so your eyes can be opened before the stone crushes your fucking head in. What's wrong with you?
I want to bring your attention to this.
Yeah.
Okay. Democrats are literally admitting the biggest reason why they wanted illegals here is for cheap labor. This post right here, okay, that I have up on the screen. Well, it doesn't look like the new homes in the villages will be built anytime soon. There's nobody around for cheap labor anymore. Angry face, angry face.
And then they turn around and complain that people don't pay a living wage, but they encourage people to pay cheap labor by buying something on. Now, listen, this is something I'm going to tell the audience and people don't really realize. And we had this discussion a while back. Now, in the construction industry, I can talk a little bit about this because this was my industry. There's something called prevailing wage. Mm-hmm. All right. When you go and you have a contract, you're going to build a development. You have a projected cost of the development. You go to get financed for it. The bank is going to want to know how many people you're employing, what subcontractors you're employing, how many direct employees you're going to have, and all the rest of it. They're going to want to know how many hours a week that you're getting, how much you're paying these people, what their deductions are going to be. They want to know every single nickel and dime before the bank agrees to finance your project. The same thing happens when you go and you contract somebody to build you a new home. They're going to base the price of the new home based on the prevailing wage as it pertains to labor. So when the contractor tells you it's going to cost you $250,000 to build this house because it's going to cost 1,850 man hours of work in order to build this house, and we're going to have a prevailing wage of $35 an hour for the employees. Well, you signed the contract paying $35 an hour. That's what you're expecting to pay on the average. for your framers, your foundation guys, your plumbers, electricians, plasterers, finishers, finish carpenters, your window setters, siders, roofers, everybody else is going to come in. That's what your average base is. Now, I'm not saying that's the number, but let's just say it is $35. When the contractor shows up and he's got 16 illegals that he's paying $12 an hour to come and build on that thing, and then they turn around and go, oh, well, I guess they're saving money, and the house is now cheaper for you to buy because you have the illegals working on it. No, it's not. Because your contractor went and hired a bunch of illegals doesn't mean that he's reducing the price of the house. He's still charging you the $35 an hour for every single person. He's paying $15. So when you count that there's 20 guys on that job site, that's 20 people times $20 an hour that's going into the contractor's pocket, not going into the wage of the people that are working there. So when you go and you fight for the illegals to come and work in the country because you think it's going to mean cheaper housing for you, that's not the case. That's not what it's going to happen. The house is going to cost you the exact same amount of money, whether or not illegals or Americans are building that house. What's going to be a different amount of money is how much money gets pocketed by the contractor that he doesn't declare to the federal government for taxation. That's what the difference is. Not in the bottom line, it's in the line going to the bottom line. Because if they're going to charge you more to say, we're now going to pay $35 an hour instead of $15 an hour, well, now your $250,000 house is $650,000. Because if you actually said, well, all right, that's how it's going to be, no, you're paying the same expensive labor. The house isn't going to be $650 because nobody's going to buy it. The bank is not going to underwrite it because the house value is only going to be worth $400. You pay $250 to have it built, so you have $150 in equity by the time it's done. If they turn around and tell you that we're going to get financing from the bank, and the house is going to be worth $400,000, but we need $650,000 in order to build it, the bank is not going to underwrite the loan. The bank is only going to underwrite the loan if there's enough equity built in the process that they can be insured getting their return on investment plus their interest. So when you go to buy that house, you're paying the top wage already. You're paying the prevailing wage regardless of who's swinging the hammer. Go to the job site and then figure. Now, when you look at the video, Marshall, that you just showed up about all of that, I've seen them doing that around here because they're building like gangbusters down here.
Yeah.
I can film that video. I can film that video easy. I show up on Sunday and I drive through the construction site and there's nobody there. That's the same thing these people doing that. You know why? Because I drive around over here in North Carolina where I am, and I can drive through these subdivisions that are going up, and they're going up faster than I could count them. There's Americans working on them, and they're getting built. The only difference now is the illegals that were building them last year are headed for the hills and being deported, and Americans are getting put back to work. But the housing prices has not increased on account of it. It's just the profit that goes under the table has decreased. That's the difference. And that's what people don't understand.
Well, that's
that's just one of the things. If you expect Americans to build something and you say, oh, it's going to cost more because Americans are going to build it. No, you're already paying for Americans to build it. You think when you buy your car, you're not paying union wages for the assembly of that car? You're paying everything for union wages. Every dollar that goes into that car is being done on a union contract. It's just that the people building them are not all union.
Yeah,
but the car company is still charging you the union wage.
Right. They already factored it in on the top line. You're not seeing the line items in there. But bringing us back to David Hogg, which we kind of out of, because he is only what's happening to him and what the Democratic Party does, what he did to the Democratic Party and what the Democratic Party did to him is endemic of what we're seeing in all of the things that come out of these Democratic policies, which are the same thing. At the end of the day, you're seeing the corruption, you're seeing the authoritarianism in its many different forms, and none of them are to the benefit of the public each and every time. But one last thing I wanted to get to, I know we're right at our mark, but I wanted to get to this today, is, and I mentioned it earlier at the beginning, Hamas. And again, it was the authoritarianism of the Democratic Party, a different aspect of it, not like what we're seeing with what's happening to David Hogg, not like the way that they're trying to manipulate markets with illegal aliens being used to increase profit margins behind people's backs. No, the authoritarianism I'm talking about here is the control of the news media to protect the control and power of the government, of Democrats themselves in government. Joe Biden, we now know definitively, Joe Biden never tried to get a ceasefire, never tried in terms of Hamas versus Israel. He never tried to structure a ceasefire. He never tried to stop the fighting. He didn't get back the American citizens. And under his watch, on 582 days, 17 out of 22 Americans were killed. 2 of those Americans were freed under Donald Trump. That leaves 3. Okay, Joe Biden got 3 Americans freed. The first wave of hostages that were released, which had nothing to do with Joe Biden, that had to do with Thailand. Thailand was the one leading negotiations internationally. That's why Thailand got 17 people released when everyone thought they only had 11 people that had been taken hostage by Hamas. And Thailand got 17 back. England got some people back. Everyone got some people back that first month, November 2023. And from that moment going forward, that left us 19 Americans who are being tortured and abused every day by Hamas, a terrorist organization. And every day we had the Democratic Socialists of America, Harvard, Columbia, Cornell University screaming at us that we should be pro-Hamas and support the terrorists. And they killed American after American after American, as I warned and I was afraid of. And when Donald Trump came in, we got one of the Americans back immediately. And then we just got the second one. We just got the last, and I love the media. It's the last living American citizen, last living American held by Hamas. And they go past that. They don't mention, there's 17 dead bodies. They were all killed under the Biden-Harris administration. This is ridiculous. Do I want to wash my hands of Hamas now? Yes, but I'd also like to pay them back because they killed our people without cause, without reason. I understand why Israel's bombing the hell out of Hamas, because they're terrorists. And look what the terrorists did. Now, that's a little bit of my statement on that. What do you guys think? I don't know.
Well, just to answer Joel asked the question about how many permits were issued in from Los Angeles County since the fires. I just did the research for you, Joel. 4.
What?
4. 4 permits. That's how many have been issued since. But here's the kicker.
Okay.
Here's where it gets funny. Los Angeles will not issue you a permit to rebuild your property until the debris removal has been done and certified to be complete, because you have to make sure that your now empty lot where your house and belongings once stood is free, not only free of debris, but free of any hazardous material and carcinogens. Once it's clear and free, and you get a certification that says your building plot is now buildable, then you can apply for your permit. The problem is, you're not allowed to clean up your own property. You can't go get yourself a couple of dump trucks or a trailer or whatever it is, clean up your property and have it done. You have to have it permitted by an authorized cleanup specialists to come in and do it so that it's done according to California safety standards. Because there are still building materials that are in California that were part of the existing structures that had since been outlawed, such as asbestos and lead paint. So you have to get your debris carting company has to be a mitigation specialist in order to make sure that there are no contaminants. Also, you have to have a mitigation specialist for refrigerants and coolants for air conditioning and heat pumps because they use Freon, and as you all know, Freon is a ozone gas depleting entity, so that has to be mitigated properly, along with if you have any sort of fuel tanks on your property, like heating oil or propane, they have to be mitigated by a licensed permitted contractor. So you are not allowed to personally clean up your property unless you get some of these companies to come in and do it. But there's none of those companies are getting permits to do it because they're not up to the standard that LA County has instituted.
Right.
So LA County is not issuing permits to have your property cleaned up that you can't clean up yourself. So the county is using their own staff, their own people, and cleaning up the property themselves and then billing the homeowners for the cleanup that they're not allowed to do themselves. Which, you know what's going to happen? It means that the county is going to be able to foreclose on the properties because, one, you're not paying property taxes because your house isn't there and you probably ain't got no job. And two, they're going to hit you with such a gigantic fee for cleaning up your property, along with any fines they could probably figure out. Oh, wait, we found some asbestos on your property. That's a hazmat. That's a fine. We found some refrigerant on your property, some diesel fuel. Those are all fines. So you won't be able to pay the fines, which means the county will foreclose on your property, and then they'll sell them at auction to the highest bidder, to the companies and developers that they want. So out with the old and in with the new. That's how California does it. That's the government way. And everything I said, you can go look up.
Well, you got to fill those coffers somehow.
Well, yeah. Well, that was the whole thing. When you have one house sitting on an eighth of an acre and you've got $35,000 worth of property taxes on the house, and it's a 1,200 square foot house, it's a shack with no insulation, but it's in California, so it's nice. And they're getting their $35,000, $25,000 a year. Imagine if they could put up a $10 million house on that piece of property by selling it to a developer, and they get $150,000 a year in taxes on that same eighth of an acre. Imagine that. Well, that's plenty of incentive for Los Angeles County to look for to foreclose on the property that you have owned for however many years. Yeah. Yep, those are the scariest words in the English language.
Yep.
So just so you know, that's how California's working.
Yeah.
Or not working. Well, what about what I was speaking about with Hamas? What about the hostage? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard one thing about it, and listen, I got no love lost for Hamas. I want all of the West Bank and whatever the hell else to be completely turned to glass. I want it eradicated off the face of the earth. I want it to be so painful to be a terrorist that you would, not even want to think about, looking to that side of it. But it's not. But until they're either all eradicated or they all go back to the countries from whence they once emanated, it's not going to happen. Israel's got to work from the top down to get rid. They got to keep targeting the leaders. Every time a new leader pops up, they got to knock them down. And they just got to wait till they get to the lowest man on the totem pole winds up being the guy in charge, and there's nobody below him to go after. I hate that they have to go through the collateral damage aspect of things, because we all know how it looks like on the media. But when you're building tunnels on the hospitals and you're putting rockets in the schools, and you got to target those things because that's where your attacks are emanating from, it's unfortunate that that's what happens. It's also unfortunate that Hamas decides to kill children, put them on the street, and make it look like Israel did it. It's very unfortunate. It's unfortunate that they decided to attack a music convention 2 years ago and kill all these people. But this is the world we live in, and as long as there's a Jew on the planet, there's going to be somebody looking to kill him.
Mike, what do you think about the fact that we now have back all living Americans that were tortured by Hamas?
I still think we should be going after Hamas.
What?
Okay. I mean, regardless whether
You're too
they
far
gave
from the
up.
mic.
I said, regardless of whether they gave up the hostages or not, released them, we should still be going after Hamas. We should make, like Frank said, we should make it as painful as possible to be a terrorist. Okay, you come after American citizens, just because you release them doesn't mean you get away scot-free.
Okay, yeah, they have to pay.
You violated us. Okay, and there is a penalty and a price to pay for doing such.
See, that's what I've always said, that they killed 34 Americans, which the news media doesn't talk about anymore. You will not hear that in any news media, mainstream news media. They will never mention, 34 Americans were killed.
Right.
Day 1, October 7th, 2023. They won't mention 22 Americans were taken hostage, tortured and sexually abused, confirmed by the UN. And 582 days later, we got back the last living person because Joe Biden didn't care. Because the news media didn't care. Well, you know what? We absolutely, because of that reason, because the news media didn't care, because Joe Biden didn't care, because there wasn't an emphasis on this, we absolutely have to do something to step up, because every single terrorist in the world has now been told, if you play the right politics, you can kill Americans. You can harm America. You can threaten them, take their money, kill them, torture them. You can do all of that if you play the right politics.
Well, my father taught me a lesson a long time ago when he was on the police force. There was a riot that was about to take place in Alphabet City in New York. Mm-hmm. And my father was among about one of 20 riot cops that were down there, and there were about 300 guys down there ready to cause a riot. And these guys are standing in the street, chains, baseball bats, broken bottles. I mean, this is the 1970s when shit in New York City was as bad as it could possibly get. And my father walked up, and my father was a big guy. My father was 6'3", 300 pounds. He was no weakling. My dad was a Herculean kind of guy. My father said there was a guy on the opposite side who was about 6'8" and about 375 pounds. My father took off his riot helmet, walked across the street, looked the guy in the face, and just said, "Come here for a minute, I want to talk to you." And the guy came over, and my father looked at him, and he said, "I just want to tell you this. When the shit hits the fan tonight, I'm coming after you. You are going to pay the price for everybody else here. You're the big guy here. They're going to follow what you do. So you can either go home or I put you down." The riot never took place that night because that guy went back across the street and he talked everybody out of rioting because he didn't want to go up against my father. Because my father was deadly serious when he said he was going to come after that one guy. Forget about the other 100 guys in the street. That's who my father was going after. And that's the diplomacy that needs to be employed now. That's the diplomacy that Trump has got to employ by going to the Saudis and saying, "Hey, you see that rock you got over there where all you guys do your pilgrimage around and stuff like that? That's the kind of like the cornerstone of your religion, right? I got a map back at the White House that has a big bullseye right on that. The next time any innocent blood is shed by somebody using your religion as a shield, say goodbye to your rock. And you have nothing left."
I don't know that would get the result you would want.
I think it would.
That I wouldn't.
Because here's the thing: the religion of peace is not a religion of person. The religion of peace is a religion of place. The things that they worship are not necessarily the people. They go to places. They go to they go to holy sites. They go to this. They go to that because they don't have. If you take that away from them or threaten to say, listen, we don't want to do it, but you're gonna. But if you let this out of control, you're gonna pay the price for it.
No.
And you'll see how quickly you can get them in check.
Well, and Mike, I'd love to hear your thought on this, but every religion, all religions, have holy sites, have holy places, have holy objects. All of them do. Everyone does. And if we start attacking religions, first of all, we have the First Amendment, freedom of religion, and we're now we cannot attack.
No. I'm not saying that.
Terrorist group.
No, what I'm saying is the people that are acting in the name of that religion have to be brought into check by the people who are at the head of that religion. And the only way they're going to do that is if they have skin in the game. Because right now they can walk around with impunity letting other people do it, saying, well, they don't speak for us. Well, you know what? Every time that some Christian does something, every Christian is to blame. If a Jew does something, every Jew is to blame. But we're not allowed to say that the religion that tells people to behead your enemies and behead those who insult the prophet and do all the rest of the stuff, that they can't all be held to account. No, I'm not saying I want that to happen, but what I'm saying is we need the cooperation of the people at the top of the food chain to get these other ones in check. And I don't know how else you do it.
Okay, I understand that, and I can agree with that concept if we're saying, okay, we're going to hold not just Riyadh and Syria, we're going to hold the UAE, and we're going to hold Iran, all of them accountable for the things that happen with the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Jordan or the Hamas in Gaza. If we say we're going to hold everyone in the Middle East accountable for their actions because it's your terrorists from your region attacking our innocent people, that's one thing. But saying going after the religious icon, that's no, I can't agree with that. I understand, but I just want to.
I'm just saying. Listen, we're not. Hey, I'm not telling you we're going to kill people.
I didn't say kill people.
We're not targeting people.
I'm not saying that. I have a line. We do attack if we're going to. We can punish the countries, and I don't mind punish the entire Middle East for the actions of those terrorist organizations.
Right, but nothing that has ever been used to punish these countries has ever been effective. What are we going to do? Punish them financially? They got more money than God himself. They're not worried about that.
And Mike, I want you to jump in, but no one has ever said, I'm going to hold the Middle East, or even a majority of the Middle East, or even the largest countries like Iran, United Arab Emirates, and Syria. Really, that's the three you need. And say, we're going to hold all three of you accountable for anything these terrorist groups do.
Well, listen, it's not even it's not a matter of what these terrorist groups, though.
Mike, that's you.
Marshall.
Okay, so here's my take on it. Okay, any country that's harboring a terrorist organization that's hostile towards the United States.
I hear him fine.
Okay.
Any country that is harboring a terrorist organization that's hostile to the United States it's open season on them. Okay, at first, try diplomatic solutions. Okay, if boycotts and some sanctions and so forth don't work, then you start military actions against them. Okay, make it unsafe for countries to harbor terrorists that are hostile to the United States.
Not only harbor, but fund. Because
Yeah.
if we look back at 9/11 and look at where the monies came from, how much of the money that came back to finance 9/11, the Beirut bombing, all the rest, and the Beirut bombing should mean something to both of you guys, because I know you guys both lost brothers there. You know, when you look back at where the funding for this came from, and it came from that part of the world, from royal families that funded this shit. Nobody's hands over there are clean.
No. No, and you make it so that if you take away the places for terrorists to hide, terrorists aren't going to have anywhere to run.
No, I can understand that, but I truly believe I'm not against anything that we're saying. I don't think enough people are having this conversation, and this is one of the failures of mainstream news media, and also a failure of a lot of political commentary.
Mm-hmm.
No one's really having this conversation, and they should, because as a nation, I think it's important that we need to say, this is what we're going to do. One, we're not done with Hamas. They still killed 34 of our people. They still killed 17 that they took hostage. We're not done with them. Just because they don't have anyone else alive anymore doesn't mean they get away with it. So we're not done with them, but we also have to have a rule, or at least a guideline and understanding for the next guy, because someone else is going to say, well, they got away with it for 582 days. If I play my cards right, maybe I get the same 500, maybe I get 1,000 days, maybe I get a little bit less, maybe I get, they got, Hamas got a $400 million dock that was built for them. It was a piece of crap. It fell apart all the time. Doesn't matter. It was a $400 million pier that was built for them. It's ridiculous, the amount of waste and such. We need to have a conversation in this nation and say, this is our rule. I think the Russians kind of got it right to an extent when they said, oh, you're going to be a terrorist. You're going to take our people. We're going in. We're going to shoot everybody first. Then we'll ask the questions afterwards. It's a shame that any of our people may die, but you're never going to get away with it. You're going to be punished right then and there.
Well, I've always said, if they ever take me and they're holding me hostage, you better check me for a transmitter, because I'm going to be transmitting my location and hoping that there's an AWAC flying close enough by that it can tell the planes where to drop the bombs. Because I don't mind going if I'm taking all of yous with me. That's my point of view.
Okay. Back in the 70s. Okay, 70s. The Iranian hostage crisis.
79. Yeah.
Okay. 444 days.
And it was what? And it was 53 Americans, right? What was it? 47 Americans that were held?
I thought it was 53.
Something like that.
So 444 days. Okay. And nothing, absolutely nothing happened to Iran.
Well, that's not exactly right. Iran, what happened since that time? Nothing directly happened. We cut them off financially. We kicked a bunch of their people out of our country in terms of their diplomats, in terms of some of their civilians, in fact. We've had sanctions on them ever since 1980. We've been trying to beat up on them financially for a long time. Was it enough? No. Was it as powerful as dropping a bomb on the Ayatollah? No. But to say that we did absolutely nothing, that wouldn't be fair either.
Well, then you see, that's the whole thing, though, is all of those efforts really did amass for nothing. Because if we didn't hit them hard enough, if we would have hit them hard like we should have in 81 and said, okay, whether they're home or they're not, when we're taking your country out, that's it. Gone. The whole lot of you is a gun.
Then
Yeah, it should have been done before Reagan came in.
Within 2 days of them being taken hostage, we should have had troops on the ground getting them up out of there.
We could have.
Right.
We had Delta Force.
Right.
They could have.
And if we had
Carter
done that, if we had done what needed to be done at the time it needed to be done, we wouldn't be in the boat right now, because somebody would have said, if you mess with the big dog, they're going to bite your ass. And that would have been the end of it. They might have had some little crop ups here and there where somebody would have tried to start something, but then we would have had to hit twice as hard the second time around. Why do you think we dropped the second nuke on Japan during World War II? It wasn't because we didn't need to convince Japan to give up at that point. We needed to convince Russia to back off, and that's what they did.
We wanted the world to know that it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a one-off.
Right. It wasn't a one-off. Yeah, we had what it takes to do it again. We needed to do it the first time back in 79, 80, or 81. And since we didn't do that, look at what's happened. Every attack is getting more heinous, it's getting more bold, it's getting more brazen, because nobody's going up to the top and saying, listen, these are your people. If you don't rein them in, you are going to pay the price for it. We are going to take you out. Because everybody seems to think, oh, diplomacy, diplomacy, diplomacy. Diplomacy means sending somebody else's children to die in your place. Diplomacy should be, these are your people, we're coming after you. The Vietnamese understood very well in Vietnam. They understood why would you think that it was illegal for service members to salute superior officers in Vietnam? Because the Vietnamese knew that if you took out the commanders, there was no chain of command to follow. And that's what we don't understand today. If you don't take out the commanders, you have nothing. All you're doing is you're taking out the operatives, but you're not taking out the command control. You have to go after command and control by saying, listen, this shit don't stop. It's your head on the chopping block.
No, I get that. I get that. The question is, I don't think the question is, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I don't think any of us are. The question is, what do we do? It's the degree of action. And I don't know. I mean, do we say, and should we as a nation, should we say, some terrorist kills and or takes an American hostage, I count them the same. There's no difference to me. You're harming an American citizen, period. So some terrorist is harming an American citizen in a foreign country. Do we turn around, and in this case we're talking about Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and do we turn around and say, okay, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Iran, you're all the largest, most powerful elements of the Middle East. We warned you. These terrorists took action. Now we're going to do X to each country. What is that X? What is that action? Do we do financial? Do we drop a bomb on each and every one? I mean, Saudi Arabia is our ally, essentially, kind of, most of the time. UAE is mostly kind of our ally, most of the time. So do we drop bombs on them? Do we drop a bomb on all of them?
Oh, I want to take you back to 1972. Okay.
The Olympics.
Munich.
Yeah.
The Munich massacre.
Yeah.
You know what Israel's response was?
They killed them.
Yep. Israel launched an assassination campaign authorizing Mossad to track down and kill anyone who had a role in the attack. Okay? It wasn't just the people that took the hostages. Anyone.
Right.
Okay? And that's what our response should be.
But that's quiet, and it's something that wasn't. The United States won't publicize a black ops team out to assassinate every member of Hamas that was connected to, and it gets real complicated at that point, that was connected to either killing and or holding hostage every single American.
Well,
It's difficult. I mean,
maybe what needs to happen is something very effective, and it seems to be effective here, is that when a couple of them wind up mysteriously flying a plane into the side of a mountain or crashing into the middle of the ocean or something like that, and to start questions, well, did Epstein really kill himself?
of course it is.
If you maybe start having some of these people get off under very suspicious circumstances where you're not really sure what happened. Well, is it live or is it Memorex? Who's to say? All I can tell you is this was a bad guy. Whatever happened happened. Sure would be a shame if it happened to you. Maybe you shouldn't be a bad guy.
Well,
You know, sometimes speculation is a very, very good weapon.
here's the thing: we can't stop at the people that are committing these atrocities. We have to go after the financial side of it. We have to start literally assassinating the people that are funding these operations.
That would be the bankers. That's mostly Iranians and the
Okay.
Iranian
If you
bankers.
start doing that, you start drying up the funding, then you're going to start seeing results.
Well, and the other thing we got to start doing is all of these colleges in the United States that keep locking the friggin' doors and having these rallies inside of it, and all of these idiots all dressed up, you know, free Palestine. Let's out the door. You got to go. That's it. Enough of the crap. Enough of it. You're here on a student visa. It is now revoked, and you now going home. Oh, you with the purple hair, you sympathize with them? We'll get you a plane ticket too. You can get out of here too. We're not going to deport you. We're going to give you a 1 year vacation in the country of your choice where you can go live your inclusive lifestyle, if you dare. Let's do it that way. It's a foreign exchange student process. Let's take from them the ones that aren't ridiculous radicals and send these ones back over.
Well,
All right, listen.
along those lines, okay. That professor that's being deported because of his anti-American position.
There's a couple of them.
I hate to say this. Well, actually, I don't hate to say this.
Come on, guys.
They were given an invitation to visit the United States to further their educational pursuits, whatever. Right?
You mean the visa? Yeah.
Okay. That visa can be revoked at any time for any reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. There is no due process needed to revoke that visa.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Okay.
covered that.
It's not a violation of liberty to revoke a visa.
True.
And that's what the Democrats are trying to play it off as.
Well, that's why they
And it's
stopped talking about it now. They stopped talking about it because we've been screaming about this for a while. It's like, no, this is completely within the rights of the executive branch. It is clearly something that is happening around the world. Other countries do it. Matter of fact, during the same time last month when we were beginning the process for some of those students here in the United States, there were Americans being evicted from Germany for the same reason. So every country has done it. Every country has the power to do it. And that's why the Democrats, they've been walking away from this, because everybody knows there's absolutely no reason why we can't do it. So, I mean, over the last month, we've been arguing about that for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree.
Okay. And deporting an illegal immigrant from this country doesn't require due process. Okay. They are here in violation. Sending them back to their country of origin doesn't require due process. Okay? They aren't entitled to a trial to prove that they are here illegally. It's known that they're here illegally.
Oh, and speaking of which, you guys heard that one judge just yesterday got the full indictment treatment for harboring and aiding and assisting an illegal to evade ICE.
Judge Dugan, and yes, I am familiar with it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's facing 6 years.
Well, it's not only, I would imagine, not only facing 6 years, but I would also imagine being disbarred.
Has to be. Has to be.
Would have to. Maybe this will start sending a message to some of the activist judges. Maybe you spend a little less time on the bench and a little more time on the law books to see exactly what the hell you're doing right and wrong, because, you're not above the law. Judges in this country for far too long have thought that they're above the law. They think because that they're judge, that they're the final arbiter. They're not. Well, the Constitution is. The law is.
Well, I was hoping we would have time to talk about the Newark Mayor Baraka. I'm going to talk about it this Sunday. I talked about it actually the Sunday had just passed. I actually did an analysis of the entire video of what we have from DHS showing when he got arrested, because now they're talking about should they arrest the Congresswoman? I believe it's McIver. Should they arrest her as well as the mayor? The answer, if you haven't seen the video, and I walked through that entire video, 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes that we can see. And I took about half an hour going through the entire thing, second by second. New Jersey Mayor Baraka, who's running for governor, that's the whole reason why they were doing this, has nothing to do with the illegal aliens. It was about promoting a Democrat for governor of New Jersey. Baraka is correctly arrested. He broke the law. He should be arrested. And the video clearly identifies he broke the law. He's a mayor. He doesn't get to break the law. So he's arrested, and that's a good thing. The Congresswoman, who does have the right to see the illegal aliens, which she never did because she never cared about them. She could have at any point, 3 members of Congress, any one of them, and all of them could have gone at any point, and it's clearly stated in the video, could have gone and seen the illegal aliens, check the facility. They didn't care. They never went. Why? Because they never cared if the illegal aliens were being detained properly or not. They could care less. It was about getting Baraka a better boost in his ratings to get a New Jersey governor. But in that process, when he got kicked out and they got embarrassed and they turned it into a protest, which it wasn't. It wasn't a protest at first. It turned into a protest when he got kicked out and then arrested. The Congresswoman who was wearing red, which I believe is McIver, did in fact attack some of the members of law enforcement, which is on video. You can see that, and she should be arrested as well because
and
that's assault.
Well, she also verbally expressed her honest belief that she can hit whoever the hell she wants to hit.
Yes, and they can't touch her. Yes, she puts herself on an entirely different class because she's a Democratic member of Congress. How dare you enforce the law against her? And again, I went through it, half hour I went through it on Sunday. You can see it in the video. It's all very, very clear. She broke the law. She should be arrested. And Democrats are like, how could you can't arrest a judge if they break the law? Yes, you can. You can't arrest members of Congress. If they break the law, yes, you can, and you should, and we shouldn't have to wait a decade to do that, like Bob Menendez, who got caught with a gold bar. That's how big his bribe was, and it took a decade before he got actually thrown in jail for it. No, we should arrest them when they commit the crime.
Well, I think the ICE agents just in the heat of the moment decided to kind of do what they did at that moment, knowing, okay, we got it on video. We can get it in front of a district attorney. We can get the process, we can get the process started then and then. Wouldn't it be funny to, send marshals to D.C. and have her escorted out of her office? Yeah, you're under arrest because there's a warrant out for you on such and such.
They should. Have you seen the video, Marshall? Did you see it?
No.
Oh. Are you familiar with the situation?
Yeah.
All right. Again, you can see the video. It's all very clear. And a lot of people are using clips that are 30 seconds or 44 seconds long. There is a body cam video of one of the DHS agents, which is 3 minutes long, 3 continuous minutes of video of what's going on. That's what I base my decision on. And that's the one. So you're asking before, Frank, well, what do you look at? Don't 30-second clip. No, you clipped it. You obviously clipped just 30 seconds of the event. We have body cam video, 3 minutes continuous. You can't tell me that's not clipped. I've got 3 continuous minutes of what they're doing and what's being said and how they're reacting. So,
well, you saw what she did. She came out the very next day and she said, any video that you see of this thing is clearly going to be fabricated by ICE agents. She came out and tried to diffuse it by saying, anything you see is disinformation. Everything you see is, don't believe your own eyes. Don't believe the 5 different camera angles. Don't believe the body cam. Whatever you see was fabricated. Yeah, she knows she's in hot water from the beginning. They put her in the car. They put her in the car and they said, you know there's going to be a warrant out for your ass. No, they're going to come for you.
They needed to, again, this was about making Baraka look good for governor, and so anything that would look bad, which is all the evidence that would obviously come afterwards, because if anyone got to see continuous video of a couple of minutes in length, you'll see that he should have been arrested. He's the bad guy in this. So that's why she said what she said, to protect her, not her. I don't think she actually realized what she did. I think they were trying to protect the Democratic governor's race. And they're trying to diffuse or deflect anyone saying, oh, well, no, Baraka is a criminal. He is a criminal. He committed a crime. So did Congresswoman. And Democrats are hiding behind their titles and authority to try and say, well, the rules don't count for us. We're Democrats and we're authority. We're elected. We have different sets of rules. And that makes them even more of a reason why they should be arrested. That's my opinion. Anyway,
I'm away from the camera, but I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, that's part of the main problem is that Congress, again, this goes back to them referring to themselves as leaders instead of representatives. They think they have a different set of standards when they don't.
Yeah. I just got the message. I didn't realize it's at 11 o'clock at night. We've been on for almost 3 hours. We're over, way over. So,
well, sorry, I'm in the process of fixing my midnight snack. So, all right, unsolicited product endorsement time. Marshall, if you have a choice of chocolate syrup, what is your go-to chocolate syrup?
I don't have one because I don't really like chocolate syrup.
Oh, for God's sake! It figures you got to be weird. Bass, what are you? A Hershey's man, a Bosco man, Nestle's Quick?
Don't use any of it.
Oh my God! This is where I know I'm the young one among the three of us. Some guys like Hershey's chocolate syrup, some guys like Bosco, some guys like Nesquik. Me, Fox's You Bet chocolate syrup, Brooklyn's own kosher chocolate syrup. If you've ever been to Brooklyn, New York, and you've had a chocolate egg cream, This is what's in it. This is the best chocolate syrup on the face of the earth. And I, before I sign out, will be enjoying my big glass of Fox's You Bet chocolate milk, because this is going to help me sleep tonight, because I am exhausted. Tonight's show has been exhausted. And no, that was not a paid product endorsement. This just happens to be my personal favorite. So, Fox's You Bet, Brooklyn's own, since 1900. Yes, this bottle is 125 years old. Old school 70s in a metal can. Yeah, the chocolate syrup in the metal can was great, but you had to puncture it with the old-fashioned can opener. It was great. The only problem is you could never get all the chocolate out of it. So the secret was, when you got to the bottom of the can, you pour milk into the can, you use your fingers to plug the holes, you shake the living crap out of it, so you could pour it out. That's how you get the best of the Hershey's chocolate syrup out of there. Good stuff. I don't know if it's good anymore, though. I haven't had it in a long time. But again, Fox's You Bet chocolate syrup, Brooklyn's own.
Yeah, okay.
And that's
I don't use chocolate syrup.
yeah, Grace, I'd love to get a sponsorship, but every now and then I throw one of my favorite products up here, like Manhattan Special, another Brooklyn, thing. I can't get a return phone call from these people if we wanted to get a sponsorship. Forget about that. So, listen, next week we're going to talk about part 2 of the Alpha Challenge. I'm going to clue you guys in on the big part of that one, along with potentially naming a few of our sponsors that we've now have 7 sponsors.
Nice.
So we're going to go with that. Marshall, give us a sound out. Then we'll go to Vass, and then I'll take it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Thank you to everybody in the chat. It's your America, and you make it what you want it to be. If you refuse to get involved, guess what? Somebody's going to make it for you. So it's up to you. Either get involved or face what you get. Get involved. That's basically all I got to say. Thank you, everybody.
Vass, go ahead.
Hey, so another great week. We have a lot of conversations. There's always more to talk about and never enough time. We went a little over today because we love to have these conversations with each other and with you. Please do take the time to come back every Wednesday, 8 p.m. to join us as we have our conversations and agree and disagree about all the various issues and how they're affecting you. Please do check out No Soundbites Allowed on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when I do my live stream, like I did last week, where you can see me go through the entire 3 minutes of DHS body cam video that shows you what the congressman and mayor did and why they should be arrested. And no one else in the news media is going to take the time to do that for you. We do the things that the mainstream media won't do. So do give us your support with a like, share, and subscribe. I hope you can do that. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Go ahead.
And the best part of the chocolate milk is the last half inch when you get to swirl the milk around with the undiluted part of the chocolate. That's where the chocolate gets richest. Fox's You Bet. So we'll catch you guys next week. As always, thank you for joining us for the spirited conversation. We love you guys. We need you guys. We're here because of you. As always, you guys be safe, shoot straight. We'll catch you next week.